Yuk-yo, with her eyes rolled back, scatters the many Dharma treasures she has stolen and swallows elixir pills. Hyok-hyok. Kagagugu. A dark crimson devilish fire tries to engulf Yuk-yo, and she clenches her teeth while avoiding the fire. Fortunately, her accuracy is low since she's not in her right mind. Although Wai Yun possesses the power of the early heavenly being stage, she is merely a puppet moving without a sane mind. Luckily, this is what's keeping Yuk-yo alive until now, but she senses something strange. Would Father really leave someone so mentally unstable right next to the black ancient plaque? No matter how much she thinks about it, it's odd. The Yuk-rin she knows would never do such a thing. It's strange. No matter how much I think about it, it's strange. If the Yuk-rin she knows wouldn't do such a thing, there is only one explanation. There's a high chance something happened to Father. Perhaps he has entered the initial stages of chi deviation. If not, he might have fractured his mind while trying to possess Yuk-ung's body. Whatever it is, this is not the behavior of the Yuk-rin she knows. Come to think of it, he's been more lenient with me ever since he returned from Pinglai Island. In the past, if she was caught attempting to run away, she would be punished by having her spiritual power sealed and hanging off the cliff of governing Dragon Island for half a year. He had an attitude that didn't care if she died, but this time, he simply locked her in prison for a mere 100 years, which is considerably more lenient. Of course, an ordinary person would die if they were locked in an underground prison without food for over 100 years. But even if rotten, she is still a nascent soul stage of the demon race, so she could survive. She can tell. It started right after returning from Pinglai Island. What's the reason? Because he went to Pinglai Island, or because he started cultivating in the Salt Sea, returning to Jade in earnest, or maybe just because the biggest obstacles, the Conqueror King and the devilish cult, were trapped in Pinglai Island. Kagagugu. A giant skeletal-shaped Dharma form is forming above Wai Yun's head. Crazy, what kind of devilish art is that now? Yuk-yo breaks out in a cold sweat and raises the magic artifacts she had stolen from governing Dragon Palace. It's then. Wu-wung. What, are you crazy? Yuk-yo glares fiercely at Beak Rin, who is buzzing at her waist. Mumble, mumble, mumble. Wai Yun gathers the power of her devilish art and recites a Dharma formula. Seeing this, Beak Rin buzzes his skull even louder. It's not that I don't believe you. With anxious eyes, Yuk-yo looks back and forth between Beak Rin and Wai Yun's skeletal Dharma form, then squeezes her eyes shut and grabs Beak Rin's skull. Fine, I get it. Boing. Wai Yun begins to move the skeletal Dharma form. At the same time, Yuk-yo throws Beak Rin's skull at the Dharma form. Beak Rin's skull strikes the hand of Wai Yun's skeletal Dharma form and shatters into dust. Yuk-yo stands there, her mouth agape in disbelief. So very absurdly, Beak Rin has died. No. Is it because Beak Rin died so abruptly? She can't even feel sadness at the current situation. Kia. Wai Yun's skeletal Dharma form screams, engulfed by her devilish fire. Seemingly trying to attack her, the dark crimson skeletal Dharma form gathers devilish fire in both hands and emits ghost fire from its eye sockets. And just as realization hits Yuk-yo and despair, and sorrow registers on her face. Tsutsutsu. Wai Yun's skeletal Dharma form. The fingertips of its hands start turning pure white. Wai Yun looks up at the skeletal Dharma form with eyes that have turned pitch black, seemingly confused. For some reason, the Dharma form seems to be gradually defying her command. Gug. Wai Yun infuses even more devilish energy into the Dharma form, but although the Dharma form grows larger, the speed at which it turns white does not change. And then finally, Juak. The skeletal Dharma form's form turns completely white, and the now white skeletal Dharma form's body appears to burn with blue. In an instant, flash, the Dharma form shines with a white brilliance, and from within, 28 translucent black spikes are ejected. Yuk-yo realizes what they are, and her eyes widen. The 28 restrictions that blocked Beak Rin's heavenly circle and sealed his spiritual power. Those being ejected means Kagagugu. Moments later, an overwhelming pressure descends upon the chamber. Yuk-yo and Wai Yun simultaneously fall to their knees, but Yuk-yo's eyes bright. Within the white brilliance, bone dust seems to coalesce, giving birth to a person's silhouette. Tsutsutsu. As the white light fades, the silhouette inside opens its mouth. It's a ghost cultivator with a body made entirely of white bones, wearing a long white robe. 13th Guardian Ghost King of the Wuji religious order, Beek Rin. I have been resurrected to protect sacred orchid Princess Yuk-Yo. You're really late. Beek Rin withdraws the pressure directed at Yuk-Yo and points his finger at Wai-Yun. Wai-Yun, still seemingly unable to grasp the situation, explodes and dies when Beek Rin points at her with his fingertip. Beek Rin extends his hand towards where Wai-Yun had been. Shortly after, Wai-Yun's bones and a strand of her soul rises to rest on Beek Rin's palm. What will you do with that? Refine it to a ghostly creature. Are you going to use it as your Dharma treasure? No, I plan to grant her citizenship in the Twilight Domain and let her live a new life. Beek Rin chuckles as he speaks. I didn't kill her out of hatred. Her body was completely saturated with blood devilish energy, so I had no choice. I also heard that a girl fell and died due to a subordinate's mistake during the early conquest of governing Dragon Island, and it seems to have been this child. I intend to return her to her parents. If it's a soul soaked in devilish energy, refining it would make quite the powerful Dharma treasure. It's a shame. Beek Rin looks at Yuk-Yo and asks her in response to her comment. Didn't Princess say it's nothing but an illusion anyway? Why covet an illusion? That's because it's just an illusion anyway. What does it matter if a non-human in an illusion is refined into a Dharma treasure? Please do not say such things. At Beek Rin's gaze, Yuk-Yo lowers her eyes and speaks. If you swear to follow me, I won't say it again. Beek Rin looks at Yuk-Yo for a moment, then without answering her, silently releases Yuk-Yo's restrictions. Clink, clink, clink. 3 spikes, similar to the ones embedded in Beek Rin's heavenly circle, are pulled out from Yuk-Yo's body. Yuk-Yo regains her cultivation and immediately flicks her hand to scatter the prohibitions on the black ancient plaque before taking it from the altar. It's done finally. A sense of joy wells up in her eyes. The name Yuk-Ung on the black ancient plaque appears to be shining auspiciously for some reason. With trembling hands, she picks up the black ancient plaque and places it in her bosom. Watching this scene, Beek Rin sends a mental speech, asking curiously, why not just put it in the storage scroll? If it's the governing Dragon Palace Lord, he must have surely placed a tracking spell without us knowing. No, since he possesses Yuk-Ung's body, he would be able to detect the name plaque even without a tracking spell. No, items like the black ancient plaque or the black ancient paper are quite fragile and easy to crumble. They are, after all, replicas of the real black ancient plaque. Even as a replica, for a material that presides over the contracts of integration stage cultivators to be this fragile. Beek Rin looks at the black plaque with an interested expression and then turns his head. Well then, let's get out of here. Then, just as she and Beek Rin are about to exit the secret chamber, Kagagugu. From above the altar where the black ancient plaque was placed, a loud noise erupts and a teleportation array appears. Simultaneously, the attraction force of the entire secret chamber they are in seems to distort, and the chamber itself transforms into the shape of a water droplet, isolated from the surrounding dimension. Yuk-Yo lets out a hollow laugh, as if she has realized something. Removing the black ancient plaque from the altar causes the nearby area to transform into a middle zone. My father didn't just have someone else guard the black ancient plaque for no reason. Beek Rin attempts to distort the void through attraction force to create an opening in the droplet. However, beyond the void, only the dark scenery of the deep sea is visible. It's useless. This middle zone itself has detached from governing Dragon Island and fallen right into the depths of the deep sea. If we leave here, we'll immediately become lost in the sea. Looking at her, Beek Rin asks, did Princess Yuk-Yo not say she could find her way in the deep sea? Yuk-Yo lowers her head, looking embarrassed. Back then, I lied to shift Jin Mayol's pursuit onto Sir Beek Rin. It's impossible with my sea dragon true blood. Maybe if it were someone on Sir Seo Ran's level. Beek Rin nods and says, in that case, the only options left are to return the black ancient plaque or... Their gazes turn towards the teleportation array above the altar. We have no choice but to board that teleportation array and reach the opposite end, connected to this middle zone. Princess. However, Beek Rin is puzzled to see Yuk-Yo's dark expression. The place connected to that teleportation array. I have a feeling I know where it leads. Where is it? It's probably to Cherry Blossom Dragon Island. But Cherry Blossom Dragon Island is a deep-sea island. It's impossible to get out anyway. This, Yuck-Yo, with a gloomy expression, places the black ancient plaque back onto the altar. Then the space within the chamber, which had turned droplet-shaped, returns inside governing Dragon Island. There's no other choice. Let's reunite with the cult leader and the others first, and then maybe we can try retrieving it again. After saying this to Yuck-Yo, he walks towards the chamber door. Yuck-Yo, looking regretful, can't bring herself to let go of the black ancient plaque. And as Beak-Rin opens the chamber door, Kriyak, Yuck-Yo and Beak-Rin are met by Yuck-Rin's main body outside the chamber door, wearing an expression as fierce as an evil spirit. Kung! Beak-Rin hastily closes the door, and Yuck-Yo, sweating coldly, retrieves the black ancient plaque from the altar again. Immediately, the chamber they are in reverts to the middle zone, settled in the depths of the deep sea. Beak-Rin speaks in a low voice. That person just now. Yes, that was Father's main body. What they saw was Yuck-Rin's main body. More precisely, it was Yuck-Rin's main body at the mid-integration stage, before possessing the physical body of Yuck-Ung. Of course, to Yuck-Rin, who has taken over the body of Yuck-Ung at the grand perfection integration stage, it is no different from a clone, but even that clone is at the mid-integration stage. Beak-Rin can't possibly contend against it. Beak-Rin lets out a low groan and looks at the teleportation array. In the end, it seems we have no other choice. It seems so. Shortly after, Beak-Rin and Yuck-Yo tightly shut their eyes and step onto the teleportation array. The light from the teleportation array engulfs them, and they disappear from atop the formation. The deep-sea island beneath governing Dragon Island. They have gone to Cherry Blossom Dragon Island. Damn. In front of the secret chamber. There, Yuck-Rin's clone, with bloodshot eyes, is drawing a formation in front of him with his own blood. It's a teleportation array. No, how dare they try to escape? I cannot allow this. Yuck-Yo must be in my hands. Yuck-Yo must be in my hands. Yuck-Yo must be in my hands. Yuck-Rin, who seems mentally unstable for some reason, shouts Yuck-Yo's name as he infuses spiritual power into the teleportation array. Pazug. The blood of the teleportation array seems to ignite, and the formation activates. It's the teleportation array leading to the middle zone where Yuck-Yo and Beak-Rin had just been. And just as Yuck-Rin, with blood-red eyes, is about to step onto the teleportation array. Where do you think you're going, governing Dragon Palace Lord? A man dressed in white, holding emptiness in his hand, asks Yuck-Rin from behind with a sly smile. Yuck-Rin grits his teeth and glares at him with eyes congested with blood. This devilish cult leader bastard, do not interfere with me. I must regain Yuck-Yo, I must regain Yuck-Yo. Yuck-Rin has gone mad. I can only think of it that way. Is it because he learned Salt Sea returning due Jade, or is there some other reason? In any case, his heart essence is bizarrely twisted, and his intent, filled with obsession and possessiveness, is being emitted madly. Evidently, that obsession is directed towards Yuck-Yo. This is not a typical mental illness, nor is it a normal heart demon. I know well because I've experienced mental illness and chi deviation myself. If a mental illness is manifesting in him, it should be an obsession with salt related to the Salt Sea returning due Jade he learned, or schizotypal personality disorder due to purple soul filling the heavens. Previously indifferent, yet suddenly having such possessiveness over a daughter he was willing to kill if disobedient is strange. Did some external entity intervene? I can't think of it in any other way. But why Yuck-Yo? That too I can't understand. What's with that teleportation array? It looks like it's related to a middle zone. S8 shut up. If you interfere I'll kill you, devilish cult leader bastard. Foolish, this is just an avatar. How pitiful. To think that the once dignified Dragon King who trapped the entire Wuji religious order 100 years ago has become such a deranged old man. I click my tongue as I watch Yuck-Rin, who has bloodshot eyes, gradually transform into his dragon form. And it seems you're mistaken. The one I found difficult to deal with using my avatar was your main body, not someone like you. This bastard, you dare to me. Quang. I land a single strike of seated detachment, standing oblivion directly into his jaws, and as he hesitates, I strike him several more times. Quagwagwagwing. Yuk-Rin's body is torn into several pieces and flung outside of governing dragon palace. What a pity. I click my tongue as I step onto the teleportation array Yuk-Rin created and activated. Payet. Crossing over the middle zone, I finally reach the other side and frown. Is this also Deep Sea Island? Honestly, being stuck on Pinglai Island, I am getting a little sick of deep sea islands. This must be Cherry Blossom Dragon Island. In any case, that means Jin Mayol will probably soon enter this place. Initially, Yuk-Rin was Kim Young-hoon's responsibility. Governing Dragon Island was mine. And Cherry Blossom Dragon Island was meant to be attacked by Jin Mayol's Salt Bone ship. It's entirely possible for Jin Mayol's Salt Bone ship, which can roam the deep sea, to enter here. Tusk, it would have been nice if the Salt Bone ship could have descended to Pinglai Island as well. Unfortunately, the depths into which Pinglai Island was plunged is too deep for the Salt Bone ship to enter recklessly. Clearing my mind of unnecessary thoughts, I look around and quickly find Yuk-Yo. And alongside her, Beak-Rin. Beak-Rin, Yuk-Yo. Ah, cult leader. Beak-Rin turns to me and expresses an intent of relief. However, despite hearing that I have arrived, Yuk-Yo just stares blankly somewhere. Beak-Rin, what is Yuk-Yo looking at? With an avatar, I can't exert consciousness on the level of my main body, so I can't immediately discern what they are looking at. I approach Yuk-Yo and look at what she is observing. It's a mural. And when I see the drawing on the mural, my eyes contract sharply. Because at the bottom of the mural, there are letters written in a very familiar handwriting, in very familiar characters. I've thought about it deeply. The reason that being gave such excessive gifts to the maggots, it wasn't to assist such maggots in achieving ascension. It was, without a doubt, to liberate ancient force. The hidden library on the top floor of Serving Command Palace. The letters are written in exactly the same handwriting as the ones written on the corner of that library. This is no doubt about it. Why even bother preparing the ascension blessing for maggots, so they can feast harder on high-quality corpses? The highest floor of Serving Command Palace. The script written in the corner of the hidden floor's library, which appears when controlling the formation of Serving Command Palace, is the same ancient language as this text, and in the same handwriting. It means the same person wrote it. It's the answer to the self-question from back then. I've thought about it deeply. The reason that being gave such excessive gifts to the maggots, it wasn't to assist such maggots in achieving ascension. It was, without a doubt, to liberate ancient force. After reading the phrases once more, I extract several pieces of information. First, the author of this text harbors great resentment and malice towards cultivators. The sentence treats all cultivators as maggots and simultaneously seems to deny the ascension of cultivators. It's as if they are denying the existence of those ranked lower than themselves, though they themselves were probably just a low-ranking cultivator in the past. It makes me wonder if they were born with an excellent immortal beast true blood, or perhaps had high-ranking parents. Second, the Serving Command Seal is a gift someone deliberately placed in the head realm. The heavenly craftsman who created the Serving Command Seal, who exactly is that person? What the text refers to is 9 times out of 10 the Serving Command Seal, and the fact that it's placed in the head realm strongly suggests it was made by the heavenly craftsman who created the original of the immortal treasure replica nether crossing ship. But it's strange. I feel an odd sense of familiarity for some reason towards this being called the heavenly craftsman. Did I perhaps meet them at some point? Maybe it's because of Buck Hyungish WA. I don't know why, but I have a baseless delusion that the heavenly craftsman would somehow be favorable towards me. Anyway, third, the writer of this text mentioned that the purpose of the Serving Command Seal is to liberate something called ancient force, Chinese letter. Indeed, the Serving Command Palace is also called the Liberation Palace. There was much debate in the head realm about why the Serving Command Palace is called the Liberation Palace and why it holds the power of liberation. Some said it's to liberate ancient souls in the head realm, others said it's to unleash forgotten treasures, and some believed it's to dissolve a certain formation. Of course, no one knows which of these is true. When the battle with Yuan Li began, Serving Command Palace certainly liberated him with the power of liberation. Serving Command Palace definitely possesses the power of liberation and is itself an immortal treasure, that can move fate. Thinking back, it is a bit terrifying. Is it because I already met her, the immortal treasure heavenly lightning banner? Thinking about it again, one can say the serving command seal is also considered a type of immortal treasure. Could it have also been a living thing? Moreover, unlike Jingli, the serving command seal is an immortal treasure with no seal whatsoever. Recalling this, I feel a sudden chill run down my spine. It was truly a frightening matter when reflected on. Indeed, I must be cautious when descending to the head realm. If the serving command seal is truly alive, it would mean that in the head realm, where even Jingli was so terrified of and sealed in, the serving command seal remained of its own will. I shake my head and shift my thoughts. Thinking too long about those things is detrimental to my health. Anyway, the serving command palace was created to liberate ancient force, or so the writer of this text believes. Then, what exactly is this ancient force being referred to here? If I think simply, it would be related to the ancient force realm. However, I believe there is something more hidden in this word called ancient force. Ancient force. What exactly does it symbolize? The ancient force realm resonated with the great mountain-splitting emperor technique. This world is related to Salt Mountain. And Qingmun Ryong definitely turned into a salt pillar from observing the heavens from the lower realm. The head realm is also related to Salt Mountain. Then, could this ancient force also be related to the owner of Salt Mountain? I ponder as I rack my brain. Of course, since I know too little at this point, I can't say anything with certainty. For now, these are the 3 pieces of information I managed to deduce while reading the text. I'll have an opportunity to learn more about this later. After examining the text, I turn my gaze to the mural. This mural it closely matches the characters inscribed on the purple soul jade seal. Blood yin, lofty dragon, ancient force, myriad realms beneath. Ah, I see. I understand as I look at the shadowy mass fighting a dragon in the mural. That is the same mass I saw in the painting in the Zijai worship layer of lofty dragon true person storage scroll. I feel a certain sensation from that drawing, and it's evident that the drawing itself is slowly converting the surrounding heaven and earth spiritual energy into devilish energy. Now, I finally understand why Blood Yin is engraved on the top of the purple soul jade seal. Blood Yin realm. The space unfolded by Coatrial and formed from twisting the outskirts of the netherworld, called the Blood Yin Ghost Valley Labyrinth. Inside that space, Coatrial had opened the entrance to the Blood Yin realm. The aura felt at the entrance of the Blood Yin realm is the same as the aura I'm feeling from the drawing. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, there was a great war shortly after the creation of the vast cold realm. In that great war, lofty dragon true person fought a certain entity from the devil realm, and at the end of the battle against that being, the serving command axe was lodged in their neck, resulting in death. The body of lofty dragon true person, which still remains to this day, became the territory of the True Dragon Alliance. In any case, after that incident, the name of the vast cold realm changed from vast cold to bright cold, and as far as I know, it was around that time the Blood Yin realm separated from the True Devil realm. Furthermore, the dark red mass separated from the certain entity from the Devil realm that fought against lofty dragon true person, depicted in this mural, emits a similar aura to the Blood Yin realm. And to build the love of virtue axis, one must go to the Blood Yin realm, not the True Devil realm. Considering all these points, I come to one conclusion. The Blood Yin realm itself is alive. Not just alive, but practically no different from the belly of some entity. It is a much more sinister and ominous place than the Nether Ghost realm, where true persons engage in observations, or the ancient force realm, which is no different from a corpse disposal site. It's truly fortunate that I managed to obtain the love of virtue axis in advance. I sigh with a small sense of relief as I organize the contents of the mural. The Blood Yin realm, as a certain living entity, reached out to the remains of lofty dragon true person and created the Black Mass. Immediately I think of Hyun Eum, the Black Dragon King. After all, the term Black Yin strategy is blatantly revealed on the purple soul jade seal. Moreover, Hyun Eum united with the body of a Blood Yin realms esteemed one very naturally and freely wielded the power known as vice. Thus, this mural, considered to record the history of the Sea Dragon race, explains the origin of the Sea Dragon race, starting from the Blood Yin realm. The first sea dragon king, Ya-Eum, purple yin, is undoubtedly a being derived from the black dragon king Hyun-Eum. The reason Cohrial has been using devilish arts related to the blood yin realm until now. The preparations he made to ascend Yuan Li, whom he infected with tainted soul filling the heavens, to the blood yin realm. And the relationship between the Black Dragon King and Cohrial. The relationship between the Black Dragon King and blood yin. The sea dragon race is a race born from blood yin. I recall the term seed dispersion that is on the purple soul Jade seal. On the mural from the world that seems to represent the ancient force realm, I see small seeds seemingly falling into worlds that resemble stars. Thigh, ring finger, and head. Head. I stroke the mural. Why is the name of the head realm, head realm? I had a rough idea. That the head realm is a decaying corpse realm made from someone's head. In that case, the illustration on this mural must surely be the head realm. And the seeds scattered on this head realm. Is it you? I ask as I glare at the drawing in the mural. For some reason, it feels like I hear a whispering ho-ho coming from that tiny dot-like picture. Are you the bastard? Of course, it's just my imagination. The mural makes no sound. After staring at the mural for a while, I record it with a recording spell, then turn to Yuk-Yo. She seems to have finally collected herself and clears her throat. I greet the cult leader. Why were you so absorbed in the mural? I was just surprised because it resembles a painting I saw in the library when I was young. If it's a picture you saw in a library as a child. In the library within Pinglai Kingdom. At her words, I look at the mural. This mural was in the library. Not exactly the mural, but that part. Yuk-Yo points to the black something fighting with lofty dragon at the start of the mural. The black thing at the start of the mural is just beginning the fight with lofty dragon true person. I look at it for a moment, then ask, unable to understand. Honestly, isn't it just a rough ink smudge on the wall? I can sense some devilish energy leaking out, but there's no chi in Pinglai Kingdom, so you probably wouldn't have felt it. How did you recognize it? However, Yuk-Yo looks at me with a puzzled expression and says, Ink smudge, does cult leader not see that grand appearance Chinese letter? I widen my eyes, even drawing a bit of the power of the three great ultimates from my main body to observe, but no matter how I look at it, it's just an ink smudge. I don't see it. Are you seeing something? I wonder if there is something only visible to Yuk-Yo, who was born in Pinglai Island. She nods. Since the cult leader can't see it, I will explain. That drawing is one of the Dharma forms depicted in the Western Heaven Tingwa, a painting located in the palace library of Pinglai Kingdom. Is that so? Yes. To explain the Western Heaven Tingwa, it's a type of mandala Chinese letter that depicts an entity called the Wheel Imperial Venerable, Chinese letter at the center, protected by 14 Dharma kings, Chinese letter. Just as there are 13 guardian ghost kings in the order, the Wheel Imperial Venerable also has 14 Dharma kings protecting them. The Dharma form depicted in that mural is very similar to the appearance of the accumulating virtue Dharma king, Chinese letter, who is the right seat of the Wheel Imperial Venerable, although it looks a bit more menacing. What is this Wheel Imperial Venerable? In the Pinglai Kingdom state religion, Axis Wheel Path, Chinese letter, they are one of the two great Buddha venerables, Chinese letter, who are worshipped. The great Buddha venerables are referred to as the Axle Imperial Venerable, Chinese letter, and the Wheel Imperial Venerable, Chinese letter. And in Pinglai Kingdom, the Axle Imperial Venerable is revered as the highest, and is worshipped as the Guardian Imperial Venerable. The Wheel Imperial Venerable is also a splendid great Buddha venerable, but they aren't particularly popular. However, there are a few temples within Pinglai Kingdom that solely worship the Wheel Imperial Venerable. Yuk-Yo finishes her explanation while gazing nostalgically at the ink-smeared mural depicting the black thing. To my eyes and to Beek Rin's eyes, it merely appears as ink smeared on a wall, but it seems like something is visible to her. Just in case, I point at the black-red thing that breaks away from the black thing. I suspect it to be the blood yin realm. Yuk-Yo looks at it for a moment and then tilts her head. Well, it just looks like black-red mist to me, I can't tell. Is that so? I understand. Anyway, it seems important and possibly connects to the secrets of the sea dragon race, so I plan to show it to Seo Ran. After carefully recording the mural, I walk along the path where the mural is drawn. At the end of the path is something that appears to be a statue of a sea dragon race. This is. As soon as I see the sea dragon statue, I furrow my brows deeply. Thick devilish energy clings to the statue, and a foul stench of blood emanates from it. The most disturbing thing is, it has a similar spell flow to what Coatrial used. The statue exudes a flow of devilish energy, strikingly similar to the devilish art Coatrial used, known as blood sacrifice ritual, blood yin returning home. Recalling what I know about blood sacrifice ritual, blood yin returning home used by Coatrial, I try to infer the nature of this spell. There's a high chance that blood sacrifice ritual, blood yin returning home, is a devilish art that creates an attraction force with the blood yin realm. It seems likely that this sea dragon statue was also created by Yuk Rin to harness the power of the blood yin realm. Kyujuduk. I immediately shatter the statue. Yururururu. And when the statue is destroyed, the wall behind it crumbles. It seems there was a hidden secret passage. Beak Rin, does it look like there's something behind? I apologize, cult leader. My consciousness gets bounced back when I try to peer inside. If I force it, it feels like the devilish energy invades my mind so. That's fine, just protect your consciousness. That information is enough. It's a place important enough for Yuk Rin to have set up a careful barrier. In that case, there's a high probability that the royal palace of Pinglai Island, which Yuk Rin stole, is inside there. In other words, the area ahead is Yuk Rin's treasure vault. Well then, shall we take a look at Yuk Rin's treasure vault? I smile faintly and step forward to go inside. Or so I intended. Piyang. Wuduk. I stop in my tracks. A very thin sword energy brushed past my cheek from behind. Ah, right, you were here now that I think about it. There stands Jin Mayol, smirking with one hand transformed into a grotesque sword. What situation is this, devilish cult leader? Surely, we agreed that the deep-sea island was to be explored by my fighting demon pirate gang. I just found a teleportation array connecting from Governing Dragon Island to the deep-sea island and came in. Ah, I see. Wonderful. Now that you've rescued your subordinate and Princess Yuk Yo, go back and return to the sea domain. Sorry, but there's something inside that I need to check. My fighting demon pirate gang will investigate thoroughly and let you know what's inside. Go back up. Wasn't your purpose to get Princess Yuk Yo this time? Why don't you go back up instead? Surely we agreed beforehand that the deep-sea island would be investigated by us. Keep your promise, devilish cult leader. I glare at Jin Mayol, and he glares back at me. So, your goal from the start wasn't Yuk Yo, but the treasure inside the deep-sea island. Both, is that a problem? Rather than a problem. I glance at the mural, depicting the secret history of the sea dragon race, and speak. There's something inside I need to investigate. I told you I'll investigate and inform you. Leave. Sorry, but it's something I absolutely need to do, you see. Jin Mayol and I glare at each other. And in the next moment, Pud. In a fleeting instant, Jin Mayol swings his grotesque sword. The grotesque sword is aimed directly at Beak Rin's head, and the sword is enveloped in his domain, capable of cutting through Beak Rin's heavenly circle and earthly bearings. Kwang. I kick Yuk Yo and Beak Rin, sending them flying toward the teleportation array. Get out, Beak Rin. Yuk Rin's body was cut like sashimi by me, so he won't be able to move for a while. In the blink of an eye, the grotesque sword moves again, targeting me. I deflect his grotesque sword with the All-Heaven's sword and glare at Jin Mayol. Are you planning to take me on? Your fighting dance is beneath mine. Jin Mayol smirks at my words. Your main body is truly fearsome, but I can easily handle a mere avatar of yours that can only use fighting dance. End. Dujijudo. Huaha. Huahata. The pirates of the fighting demon pirate gang surround Yuk Yo and Beak Rin as they try to use the teleportation array. I glare at them as I speak. If you kill my subordinates, the contract written on the black ancient paper will punish you. Jin Mayol grins. That's true, but isn't it strange? What? According to the contract terms, when I attacked you, the retribution from the black ancient paper should have descended upon me immediately. But here I am, unharmed. Do you know what this means? It's the power of Pinglai Island. Because Yuk Rin brought the palace of Pinglai Island here, some of Pinglai Island's rules are now applied even to this deep-sea island. In other words, within here, contracts are partially nullified, if not completely. Shall we test how far it applies? At his word, the pirates at the Four-Axis stage laugh as they press Beak Rin with attraction force. Fine, I'll leave. I grip my teeth slightly and step back. However, Jin Mayol bursts into laughter and says, "Why be like that? Aren't you curious about what's inside?" This isn't fun, this won't do. He looks at me with a lustful gaze as he licks his lips. Let's make a bet. What? It's beneficial for you as well. If you win the bet against me, I'll give you the position of captain of the fighting demon pirate gang. Furthermore, all the treasures inside will be yours. You can investigate whatever you want inside, but if you lose, your subordinate's life is forfeit. Yuk Yo will also be mine. I will take the treasure inside, and you devilish cultists will be forever stuck in Pinglai Island within the deep reaches of the deep sea. How does that sound? Tempting, isn't it? As he gives a signal with his eyes, the cultivators of the fighting demon pirate gang threaten Beak Rin with menacing spells. He calls it a bet, but it's practically a threat. I close my eyes. What kind of bet? It's simple. Inside, there will likely be the salt crystal palace that Yuk Rin took. Whoever takes hold of that palace first is the winner. Any method is allowed. His eyes are filled with lust. I can tell. Having caught an opportunity, he reveals an intent to want to fight me to fulfill his lustful desires. He has no chance against my main body, but for the fighting ghost race, battling a strong opponent is the greatest pleasure. He intends to feel that pleasure by fighting my avatar. It's unbearably unpleasant. However, after glancing at Beak Rin, I look at him again. Fine. Ha, as expected, how bold. He licks his lips again with his tongue. I remain silent, quietly gazing at the entrance to Yuk Rin's treasure vault and meet Jin Mayol's eyes again. Let's start. Good cult leader. For a moment we lock eyes. And in the next moment, tada! Unable to say who went first, Jin Mayol and I fly straight behind the statue. We race into Yuk Rin's treasure vault. Thus begins the treasure hunt with Jin Mayol, with the life of my subordinate at stake. Chapter 397, with the wind too. As I pierce through the barrier formed by the sticky devilish energy, the surroundings brighten. For a moment, I find myself gaping at the overwhelming scene before me. Ancient stones. Golden ancient stones are shining everywhere. Crazy. Did they grind up a few islands to create a field of ancient stones? It's truly a treasure trove. In various places, not only ancient stones, but also the rare supervisory jade, and even a couple of salt crystals can be seen. Besides the ancient stones, there are Dharma treasures made of coral. There are also precious stones known as the Seven Treasures, such as tridacna, red beads, glass Chinese letter, lapis lazuli and agate scattered around, overflowing with spiritual energy. Above all, the most incredible thing is the pure white palace, in the center of this mountain of countless treasures. It's a palace made of salt crystals that Yuk Rin has taken from Pinglai Island. Even I am overwhelmed by this colossal mountain of treasures. Jin Mayol is completely entranced, unable to regulate his breathing, inhaling and exhaling repeatedly. Seizing the opportunity, I quickly dash toward the salt crystal palace. Just then, flash, Snow White sword energy scatters a chilling sword light from behind me. I hurriedly turn and block Jin Mayol's sword light. This is... My arm tingles. There's no way that Jin Mayol could have produced such sword light. When I turn to look at him, Jin Mayol has already drawn a pure white sword from the pile of treasures and is pointing it at me. Crazy, just what is that? It's a sword made of pure white salt crystals. Around the sword, the space is subtly trembling, and the engraved characters, reforming calendar, Chinese letter, on the sword glows softly, exuding a formidable presence. You know the myth about the god of artisans, the heavenly craftsman. The artisan who created countless immortal treasures was said to have crafted a treasure to contain the power of the god of calendar. Long ago, a quasi-immortal at the entering nirvana stage witnessed a shadow of that treasure and was so moved that they attempted to create a replica with salt crystals, producing 3 pieces. But in the end failed, leaving only 3 failures. What's your point? This is a replica of the immortal treasure reforming calendar. Boing. Once again, Jin Mayol swings reforming calendar, and a sword light that matches Kim Young-hoon's surpassing radiant saber is produced from his hand. Boing! I swing the all-heaven sword to shatter that sword light, then narrow my eyes. I was pushed back. After deflecting the sword light, my foot was pushed back a full kai 1.1 feet, 33 cm. With Jin Mayol's original skill, such a thing would have been impossible. Boing! I too look around, trying to find a useful Dharma artifact, but there isn't a single weapon-type Dharma artifact in sight. And I quickly realized why that is. Clang, clang, clang. Dozens of swords, sabers, spears, and divine weapons are suddenly embedded around Jin Mayol. That pirate bastard had swiftly unfolded his integrated Tao domain the moment he entered to gather the treasures. Seeing it now, that bastard's integrated Tao domain is specialized not in concealment, but in thievery. I confirm that his greed and his integrated Tao domain are closely connected. I see your integrated Tao domain. Did you figure it out? It's unbelievably vulgar. Realizing how he has quickly swept away the surrounding treasures without me noticing, I let out a dry laugh. The ability of his integrated Tao domain. It isn't mere stealth, but rather, the ability to enhance thievery in proportion to his greed. This is truly making my heart beat. I've never seen a place with so many treasures in my life. Ha ha ha. To think Yuk Rin, that son of a pig, had so many treasures stashed away. Technically, it's the legacy of Sea Dragon King Yuk Ung, but hee. So these are the treasures of the king of the Sea Dragon race that is said to be capable of finding paths in the deep sea. Ha ha ha. Jin Mayol's eyes glisten. Come at me, devilish cult leader. Here my greed is at its peak. Here I am the strongest. He rushes at me, surrounded by dozens, even hundreds, of divine weapons just like Kim Young-hoon did before. Kugwagwagwang. His reforming calendar and my all-heaven sword clash. I feel my entire body tremble at the overwhelming power of reforming calendar. Though his realm is shallow, he compensates for it with the power of the treasured sword and his early integration stage cultivation. Moreover, to make matters worse, the surroundings begin to shake. This is Kagagugu. The mountain of treasures starts to tremble. At the same time, light bursts from the salt crystal palace at the mountain's peak. Payet. It seems as though an ethereal force is enveloping the area. Simultaneously, our eyes shrink tightly. Has the chi thinned? No, this is an illusion. The salt crystal palace begins to exude a faint illusion, synchronizing the area into a world akin to Pinglai Kingdom, where spells and methods cannot be used. Of course, the power is so faint it's pitiful compared to when it was atop Salt Mountain. Nevertheless, the power of both Jin Mayol and myself diminish rapidly, and since I am only a seated detachment, standing oblivion avatar with limited energy, my body becomes semi-transparent, on the verge of disappearing. This is insane. Cursing internally, I retreat. Suddenly, the mountain of treasures ripples once more, and a massive dragon emerges from within. Shed skin. It appears to be the discarded husks of Yuk Rin. With Yuk Rin's faint consciousness seemingly embedded within it, the husk wails as it spots us intruding on the mountain of treasures and twists its body violently, attempting to swallow us whole. The husk's own power doesn't seem to even reach the core formation stage, yet unreasonably, it seems unaffected by the illusion, using its energy freely. Sploosh. As the husk squirms, the treasure mountain ripples wildly like seawater. Good, this is getting more and more fun. Kang. My all-heaven sword collides with his reforming calendar. With my energy already weakened by the palace's illusion, I am almost annihilated entirely from the impact. Kagagugu. This useless illusion formation. Though my energy is reduced to the verge of extinction, Jin Mayol's energy, being of the integration stage, is at the chi building level. We dodge the attacks of Yuk Rin's husk, clashing our swords against each other. Kong King. Lacking the energy to freely transform the all-heaven sword, I keep it in the shape of a sword as I engage him. Feigning a horizontal slash, I immediately follow by sweeping his leg to disrupt his lower body and stab his eyes 7 times in quick succession. Pugwag. Though Jin Mayol's head splits open, his body at the chi building level continues to recover endlessly as long as the head isn't severed, relentlessly pressing me. Kugwagwagwang. When he swings reforming calendar, a corner of the treasure mountain which is akin to a small hill collapses. We are engulfed by a tidal wave of ancient stones, battling atop the undulating sea of ancient stones. Spinning from a low stance as if dancing, I slash upwards towards him. Jin Mayol's chin splits open. He steps forward, attempting a downward slash from the upper left to lower right. I hook his foot and, after breaking his balance, use transcending peaks to cut towards his side. He almost falls but regains his balance, launching 3 consecutive strikes with reforming calendar. The first is countered with echoing valley, also offsetting the second, while the third is deflected using deep mountain. I then close in and cut with secluded valley, following up with bouldered cliff and strange stone consecutively, grinding away at his chest. Kuwig, good. With a flushed expression, he regenerates his body and holds reforming calendar in his right hand and an unknown divine spear in his left. In the air, he has a demon saber, a ghost bow, and countless weapons arranged like a cavalry, and charges at me. Kagagugu. His attacks rain down on me like beams of light. But they are shallow. They aren't properly coordinated. Unfolding landscape painting as if dancing, I deflect, redirect, and evade. Splash. The terrain changes once again, due to the movement of Yuk-Rin's shed skin. I find myself above Jin Mayol. Boing. The slashes focus on one spot, biting into one of Jin Mayol's weapons like a mountain tiger. Quang. The sword energy intensifies and weakened with us. Jin Mayol's ghost bow shatters. Spoosh. The terrain changes again. Jin Mayol, a pirate accustomed to fighting at sea, is hardly affected by the changing terrain and immediately regains posture and strikes down at me. I use 9 mountains, 8 seas, rotating 90 times on the spot and adding the rotational force to launch 8 slashes upward. Jin Mayol seems to stagger but regains his stance. Splash. The terrain shifts once more. Our sword moves change as well. Due to the constant transformation of the terrain caused by Yuk-Rin's husk, I have to manipulate the surroundings using mountain and valley transformation to create a terrain favorable to me. King Tagan Kagagaduk. Despite everything, he is still at treading heavens. He pressures me with attacks that are seamlessly integrated with martial arts. In a fleeting moment, dozens, hundreds, thousands of exchanges occur. Tung. An ancient stone is launched into the air, and Jin Mayol swings his divine spear at me in sync with it. The stone shatters, scattering in all directions. Some of those fragments rush toward me. I scatter sword energy with joy of mountains and peaks, deflecting all incoming stone fragments back towards Jin Mayol's eyes. Immediately switching moves, I use the now 6,000 lights emerging peak of the 12th move of severing mountain swordsmanship, concentrating a massive amount of sword energy onto his spear. Paseg. His spear breaks. Splash. With 3 shifts in the terrain, we exchange an uncountable number of blows, and 77 of Jin Mayol's divine weapons are destroyed. Each time I shatter one of his divine weapons, his expression twists like that of a ferocious evil spirit. It's a rather thrilling feeling, a reaction I hadn't seen when breaking Kim Young-hoon's weapon. We exchange swords. His demon saber grazes past my eyes, and I twist the trajectory of my sword, striking his demon saber upwards. I then strike his saber again with dragon vein, breaking it completely. We exchanged moves. His devil sword pricks my earlobe and he attempts to slice my neck with a change of technique, but the trajectory of the all-heaven sword bizarrely shifts, deflecting the attack. Then, using layered mountains, I create a thicket of sword energy to restrict his movements. Seizing the gap when Jin Mayol pauses momentarily, I use mountain and valley transformation, concentrating it on his devil sword and reducing it to powder with vibrations. We exchange intent. Receiving his now bright red intent, I dodge his dual strike aimed simultaneously at my groin and face. A strand of hair is sliced off. Immediately, I thrust my sword into Jin Mayol's mouth with flowing ridge, and with Mountain Echo's valley responds, I channel my sword cry, Chinese letter, into his internal organs, causing his entire body to tremble. As he spews blood from his 7 orifices, I shred the mace in his left hand to pieces. KW Guang. And once more we exchange moves, shattering 3 more of his weapons. How many times have I exchanged blows with him? Now, all that remains in his possession is the first divine sword he held, the weapon called Reforming Calendar. Jin Mayol's eyes are half rolled back as he grinds his teeth. You damn bastard, my children. When were they ever your children? They were yuck rins. Shut up, I'll kill you. He rages furiously, gripping reforming calendar in his right hand and transforming his left into the grotesque sword, unleashing a flurry of sword moves. I'll show you the power of an immortal treasure. Pud. Once again, a terrifying snow-white sword light grazes past me. Indeed, it's a fierce strike. Despite having destroyed all of Yuck Rin's weapons, the reason I haven't managed to break reforming calendar in his hand is simple. It's because the power of reforming calendar is far beyond expectations. This is troublesome. Tung tung. I try provoking reforming calendar several times, but it's unyielding. It's solid. Buang. He swings reforming calendar again. Salt crystal itself is the core of the flying immortal formation and allows access to the lower realms. In other words, it's a mineral that interferes with dimensions. Because it interferes with dimensions, the salt-boned ship of the fighting demon pirate gang, which uses salt crystal as its keel, can dive and navigate freely in the deep sea. And the power of reforming calendar, made from such salt crystal, has a surpassing radiant saber-like ability to slice through space even though the energy is thin. Chuug. Sploosh. Simultaneously as I dodge reforming calendar, Yuck Rin's husk moves, and the slash from reforming calendar directly strikes the waist of Yuck Rin's husk in an unfavorable position. Slice. Just like that, the waist of Yuck Rin's shed skin is cut through. Yuck Rin's husk thrashes like mad, emitting light. I can't break that. I know instinctively. A replica of an immortal treasure crafted by the heavenly craftsman. No, to be precise, it's not even a replica but a failed product. However, I can feel it. This reforming calendar sword is one with an insane level of completion, a divine sword of the world. Could one believe it if I said this single sword has a pressure equivalent to one of the Mad Lord's integration stage puppets? This single sword alone is on par with the Baekhyang fleet. It's to the point where even someone like me, who has no greed for Dharma treasures, feels my heart shake. And such an insane artifact is being wielded by a treading heavens warrior. If Kim Young-hoon were to wield it, I can't guarantee victory even with my main body. If Jang Ik were to wield it, there would be no one to stop him from conquering the bright cold realm. However, how pitiful. Instead of swinging my sword, I look coldly at Jin Mayol, who is consumed by the potential of the reforming calendar sword and wielded by the sword instead. Is this the fighting dance of your fighting ghost race? The attacks of Jim Mayol that initially took the form of the fighting ghost race's fighting dance are increasingly distorting as he swings reforming calendar, turning into a disorderly mess of garbage. Shut that mouth. How foolish. I click my tongue and concentrate my mind. Since the start of the battle, Jin Mayol has not landed a single effective blow on me. While there is the difference in our realms, it's laughable considering when I fought with seated detachment, standing Oblivion Kim Young-hoon on equal footing after just reaching Tribulation Heavens. At that time, I pushed Kim Young-hoon back with sheer force. But what about this guy? He doesn't have something like the three great ultimates. Yet despite still having a higher cultivation than I do, possessing an overwhelmingly superior weapon, and being older than me, he has been relentlessly toyed with his treasured possessions being shattered apart. Your greed has rotted your martial arts. I mock his sword, deflecting the grotesque sword aiming for my side, then thrust my all-heaven sword towards the reforming calendar sword that tries to pierce my eyes. Pugwag. The next moment blood spatters. My all-heaven sword accurately pierces Jin Mayol's grip, halting his sword's advance. Boom. Boom boom boom. In the next moment, my all-heaven sword unleashes thousands of stabs in an instant, causing Jin Mayol's grip to explode. Tusk. Yet his body clings stubbornly to his sword. Even if it's rot, he's still at Tribulating Heavens, huh? I make up my mind. Even if I take some losses, I'll have to use it. Swoosh. Once again the terrain shifts. Unfortunately, the change results in him being slightly above me, and me slightly below him. Without the opportunity to adjust the terrain using mountain and valley transformation, he charges at me. It doesn't matter. I move my sword. Tsue. The all-heaven sword begins to cry. Due to the salt crystal palace, the energy is thin. Both my body and the all-heaven sword are in a weakened state. However, even in that situation, the all-heaven sword becomes distinct again. The sword moves. A faint mist follows in the wake of the sword's trajectory. A martial technique I began creating upon coming to the ancient force realm, integrating everything I have. Severing mountain swordsmanship, the 31st profound move. This is my history. Chapter 398, with the wind 3. Focusing my emotions, I imbue my sword with heart essence. Within Tao Mountain Sword Forest, there only one sword is shining. That sword is full of nicks and chipped edges. Reflected on the blade is a novice swordsman clad in white. Beyond the transparent blade, a crude 3 great ultimates is visible. This technique is still incomplete, and it was not used because it has the drawback of exploding midway when unleashed. However, right now, I decided it's time to use this unnamed martial move. This treasure hunt that involves hostages between us is already meaningless. The 31st move of severing mountain swordsmanship begins with the very first technique, transcending peaks. Similar to the 30th move, deep mountain, emerging Tao, there are 3 steps Chinese letter at the start to transition between planes. Starting with the horizontal / transcending peaks, I move the sword from a lower plane to a higher plane. Then with a downward slash, I unfold deep mountain, emerging Tao as the second step. Immediately following with a thrust, I launch a seated detachment, standing oblivion single strike at the plane of soul to complete the third step. Thus, unifying all planes my sword reaches through these 3 steps marks the beginning of the 31st move. The immortal cultivation of the heaven tribe is a method of rising to the plane of fate. The immortal cultivation of the earth tribe is a method of rising in the plane of chi. The realm of the heart tribe roams freely at the plane of soul. I encapsulate the path of immortal cultivation I have traversed thus far in my sword path. Through the first, second, and third steps, all moves of the severing mountain swordsmanship are connected and interconnected. The first step rises from a lower plane to a higher plane through the heaven tribe method, mimicking the stages of chi gathering, chi refining, core formation, nascent soul, heavenly being, and 4-axis. The second step strikes from a higher plane to a lower plane through the earth tribe method, causing explosions and imitating the realm of the earth tribe. The third step was just martial arts up until now. Following the first, second, and third steps of horizontal slashing, vertical slashing, and thrusting, I consecutively unfold the 22nd move severing mountain 3 times in a row, pressing forward with 66 martial techniques. And then I activate the combination technique of the 66 moves again. After unleashing the combination technique, within the first, second, and third steps, I fuse all my cultivation techniques, demon abilities, and puppet circuits. This is the still incomplete 31st move of severing mountain swordsmanship. Chua. Sword and swords connect infinitely, exhaling a hazy mist. I engrave my history into my sword path, revealing the effect of the canvas of myriad forms and connections. Each droplet of mist is a gang sphere that has reached the zenith. Chi is being consumed enormously, causing my avatar to flicker as if it's about to vanish. However, the mist begins to rotate in the form of the 3 great ultimates. Heaven and earth spiritual energy is drawn in. Jin Mayol's eyes waver. The 3 great ultimates rotate. The hazy mist swirls ferociously. Kagagagugu. Just from the aftereffects, Yuk Rin's treasure mountain is split apart, and Yuk Rin's husk turns to dust and vanishes. The finale of the 31st move is to unite the 3 great ultimates into one and manifest a strike that would cleave heaven and earth, causing the phenomenon of split sky. The 3 great ultimates unite. The hazy mist is dyed pure white. The next moment, quagwagwagwing. As if alive, my technique twists and explodes. Unable to control the explosive force, I am hurled backward along with it. But at the last moment, I concentrate the explosive force on Jin Mayol's right hand. And, quatching, finally, the reforming calendar sword held in his hand is flung away. TSSSSS. My avatar becomes faint as if it's about to vanish. Did Yuk Rin's shed skin serve a role as the axis of the illusion formation? As the husk turns to dust, the illusion formation trembles and collapses. The scenery of the otherworld that overlapped with this space until moments ago disappears, and the thin chi returns to its original state. However, the clash just now is clearly a loss to me. Had I focused the explosion more onto Jin Mayol's body, I could have entirely grinded away his upper body, but seeing his gaze at the last moments, I deliberately took some of the explosive force onto myself. Drawing in heaven and earth spiritual energy, he regenerates the wounds all over his body. In contrast, my body is fading, unable to withstand the aftermath of the explosive force. Though I would slowly recover as the heaven and earth spiritual energy is returning, at this rate, I will lose to Jin Mayol. Yet instead of seizing this excellent opportunity to attack, Jin Mayol bites his lip and stares at me. What was that just now? I haven't decided on a name yet. I'm not asking about the name. How did you combine cultivation realm and fighting dance? His eyes are trembling violently, as if shaking like an aspen tree. How did you do it, tell me? Kagagugu. As he roars, I can feel the entire deep-sea island shaking beyond Yukrin's treasure vault. I look at Jin Mayol and smile. You can do it too. What kind of nonsense? What is that in your hand? What? What have you been wielding all this time? At my shout, Jin Mayol is dumbfounded and then shivers. I ask as I raise my energy-drained body. What is the name of what you are unfolding? Second stage fighting steps of fighting dance. I asked, what is the name of what you are unfolding? Clearly, Jin Mayol has the advantage in energy. He also has the advantage in stamina. If he and I were to clash now, he would easily eliminate my avatar and seize all the treasures here. However, Jin Mayol avoids my gaze and lowers his eyes instead, as if wanting to hide in a mouse hole at my shout. I don't know. Raise your sword. He briefly glances at the reforming calendar sword that had been flung from his hand, clenches his lips, and transforms his hand into the grotesque sword. I will ask again, what is it you hold in your hand? He lowers his head. The intent of shame reveals itself within his heart. The fighting ghost race becomes aroused through combat. Thus, they elevate their realm and grow faster than anyone else through combat, becoming the most excellent warriors compared to any other race. They clash with other races, emulating their physiques, and indulge endlessly in ecstasy and frenzy, fighting until they die. That is the fighting ghost, Chinese letter. Jin Mayol, born as a fighting ghost race, has lived that way until now. Through the traditional ritual of the fighting ghost race known as fighting dance, he entered the first stage of fighting steps. A few hundred years ago, he fought with someone from the Conqueror King's forces called the Surpassing Radiant Divine Demon, who appeared in the ancient Force realm, gaining inspiration to enter the second stage of fighting steps. Reaching the second stage of fighting steps, something only those with extraordinary talent among the royal family of the fighting ghost race might achieve, Jin Mayol's confidence soared to its peak. Now, he is superior to any other of the fighting ghost race. If he only lives long enough, he is confident he can surpass the third stage of fighting steps and reach the fourth stage of fighting steps, which is said to have been reached by the creator of the fighting dance. He felt like the world was in his grasp. He already seemed to see the ultimate limits of fighting dance flickering before his eyes. His life has never stopped once. Although minor obstacles have blocked his path, he believed he could overcome them as he always had. But, I don't know. Jin Mayol lowers his eyes before a human swordsman he has always looked down upon. His entire body is trembling. The beautiful sword dance he has just witnessed still flickers before his eyes. It's often said that when one's realm is too low, they cannot recognize the moves of those at a higher realm. However, Jin Mayol's realm is at the second stage of fighting steps. Regardless of anything, he possesses a sufficient level of insight, and since he isn't at too low a realm, Jin Mayol can comprehend some of the enlightenment imbued in that sword dance. It's immature. There seem to be many areas that need improvement, and it's evident that the man before him can't control his sword path. The fact that the sword techniques exploded due to lack of control over the sword path is laughable, something even a passing carp would find amusing. Yet Jin Mayol can't laugh. Because the moment he saw that sword, he realized that the fighting dance he has learned is even more worthless. The swordsmanship that began with 3 movements was elegant. It was the murmuring of countless crowds, a miserable attempt to integrate heaven, earth, and heart. At the same time, it was the immaturity of a novice swordsman and a trash-like waste. However, the murmuring within the sword constantly discussed the direction the sword should advance. The misery continually pushed the sword to develop. The immaturity through comprehension refined the trash-like sword path, a sword containing infinite possibilities. That was the sword displayed by the man before his eyes. And when that man, who showcased that beautiful potential, asked a question Jin Mayol had never contemplated before, Jin Mayol felt an indescribable shame. It's humiliating. Just why is it exactly? The fighting ghost race only learns the fighting dance, but they don't bother assigning names to it. To them, the fighting dance is merely one of the many ways to enjoy copulation. Everyone thinks so, and thus Jin Mayol never considered naming the fighting dance as well. Because it's common sense. But now, what stands before his eyes is a sword reaching a realm that can never be touched by mere common sense. To speak of common sense in front of that sword is an act that would make Jin Mayol himself trash. Am I trash? The grand cultivator of the fighting ghost race, Jin Mayol, who has always been overflowing with confidence, falls into despair for the first time in his life and trembles all over. In front of that sword, he seems so small. He wants to cry. Holding a sword has always been joyous, but not this time. He wants to hide somewhere, anywhere. But he can't hide. I will ask again, what is it you hold in your hand? That person is asking. He must answer that question, because he knows that if he doesn't, he will remain trash forever. An instant as long as eternity passes. Jin Mayol hesitates, choosing and re-choosing his words. And finally, feeling as though he will vomit inside his shameful emotions, he speaks the name of what is in his hand. Lust, Chinese letter. Yes, what he has been wielding, or rather, what 99.9% of the fighting ghost race wield is that. Number instinct, Chinese letter. Yes, this is instinct. To Jin Mayol's answer, the man before him nods. Yes, that's correct. Although he expected it, hearing a direct confirmation makes Jin Mayol feel a wave of nausea. It feels as if the fighting dance he has practiced, the entire history of the fighting ghost race, is being utterly denied. He has always believed their fighting dance to be superior. But it is not. Their fighting dance is merely an extension of the fighting ghost race's instincts. He looks at his sword with a dazed expression and asks, if so, is fighting dance wrong? And that person replies, it might be. Then, or it might not be. At his words, Jin Mayol's pupils constrict. If you know what you've been wielding all this time, then think about how you will wield it from now on. Is it because he is in a higher realm and can clearly read Jin Mayol's heart essence? Or is it simply because his sword is so lacking that it's obvious how he should be advised? Jin Mayol grits his teeth at his advice, and he raises his grotesque sword. I will swing it once. The man nods. The next moment, the two martial artists clash. Jin Mayol, with the energy of the integration stage, and the heart tribe at the level of the fourth stage of fighting steps collide. But there is no explosion. There is no shockwave. Only Jin Mayol's grotesque sword is cleanly cut. No, it isn't just his sword that is cut. His upper body and domain are entirely sliced away. Until just a moment ago, when he fought with the reforming calendar sword, they seemed to match quite evenly. Their levels seemed similar. At least that's what Jin Mayol thought. Thud. Jin Mayol collapses, defeated in a single strike, slumping down on the mountain of ancient stone. It's a bitter defeat. However, a peaceful smile, one he has never worn even when mating, is now on his face. Thank you. He has lost. The salt crystal palace he originally aimed for, the treasures of Yuk Rin's treasure vault, and the once-in-a-lifetime divine sword, the reforming calendar sword, will all fall into Seo Yunhaian's hands. But it doesn't matter. The next realm is in sight. The third stage of fighting steps, which no one in the fighting ghost race has reached for tens of thousands of years, seems fleetingly within his grasp. He is satisfied with that. The next realm is before my eyes. His vision blurs. His consciousness scatters. His body grows cold. It's a little different from the conclusion Jin Mayol had envisioned, but he smiles. Having exhausted all his resurrections and failed to fully obtain purple soul filling the heavens, the unaging and undying he aimed for is out of reach, but it doesn't matter. The soul Chinese letter of fighting dance, because he discovered the joy of what Seo Yunhaian calls martial arts. Thus, the grand cultivator of the fighting ghost race and captain of the fighting demon pirate gang, Jin Mayol died. He was an unpleasant guy from the first meeting. Originally, when I unleashed the 31st move, I intended to completely crush him with explosive force. But at the last moment, his eyes changed from those of a beast to those of a martial artist. As a fellow martial artist, I decided to take on his strength and give him a chance. And although Jin Mayol charged like a beast, he died as a martial artist. After looking at Jin Mayol's corpse for a moment, I swing the all-heavens sword. Kagagugu. The mountain of ancient stone and treasures above him collapses. Buried under golden treasures, the martial artist Jin Mayol completely disappeared from the world. Chapter 399, With the Wind 4. Step. I slowly walk toward the palace and touch one of its pillars. Unlike what I have seen before, one of the pillars of the palace is missing. It seems Yukrin used it when cultivating the salt sea, returning to Jade. The fact that such precious salt crystal is required to this extent for the progress of salt sea returning to Jade is honestly ridiculous cost-performance-wise. While its power seems exceptional, seeing the issues it caused in Yukrin's mind makes me less inclined to desire it, even if its power is outstanding. Whether the mental illness was triggered by the salt sea returning to Jade or due to external intervention, it doesn't matter. In any case, it means the salt sea returning to Jade offers no assistance in comprehending one's heart, unlike the great mountain-splitting emperor technique or its variations. I enter the interior of the palace. The structure is exactly the same as when I entered from Pinglai Kingdom before. However, the palace in Pinglai country was filled with specialties of its country, decorations, and artifacts obtained from there, while the current palace is desolate with only a few documents seemingly written by Yukrin lying around. I head to the library where I saw the ritual worship scripture of love of virtue, but it's empty. It's as if everything I saw in Pinglai Nation was an illusion. After looking at the palace for a while, I'm able to figure something out. This palace, it's connected to Pinglai Island's Salt Mountain and Attraction Force. It's a fact I can recognize, having communed with Salt Mountain with my main body for over 80 years. The attraction force is so weak that it's hard to discern this fact. And if it's connected to the Salt Mountain, I sit cross-legged, close my eyes at the center of the palace where the throne of Pinglai Kingdom's queen used to be, and recite the formula of the reversed Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique. Wowung. The salt crystal palace glows white. And at some moment, Wowung. The salt crystal palace appears to shine dazzlingly white and incandescently, and I feel my mind being pulled somewhere. And in the next moment, chatter. I slowly open my eyes. This place, the surroundings are noisy. I'm sure I was definitely alone inside the palace. Before I know it, numerous high and low-ranking officials before the throne in the royal court are looking at me with bewildered expressions, and their piercing gazes are stabbing. You crazy king of demon spirits, what are you doing? Get down at once. This insolent one. They are all clamoring at me in unison. My senses are dizzy at first, so I can't understand what they are saying, but I soon grasp the meaning of their words. Squirm. Something is squirming beneath me. I quickly stand up and look at the throne. On the throne sits the Queen of Pinglai Kingdom, glaring at me with a slightly flushed face. For two people to suddenly appear and sit on me, I almost suffocated to death. Why have you appeared again unexpectedly? What do you want now? Please wait a moment. I feel a headache coming on. The headache soon intensifies, and abruptly the illusion in front of my eyes blurs, and I find myself back in the empty palace. I see. Just a moment ago, I was startled and temporarily stopped reciting the mantra of the revered Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique. Reciting the mantra of the reversed Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique crosses me into that world, and when I stop, I return. Is that it? It seems to be a peculiar situation, caused by the separation between the Salt Crystal Palace and the Salt Mountain of Pinglai Island. I smile at the amusing situation and step outside the palace. Just then, zing! I suddenly feel an intense headache coming on. Cug, what is this? It isn't a pain just affecting my seated detachment, standing Oblivion avatar, but even my main body on Pinglai Island is in agony. I shift my main consciousness to my main body to find out what is happening. And then I immediately understand the situation. 3 days. Coming to my senses above the salt mountain, I am so dumbfounded I open my mouth blankly. In the short span I entered Pinglai Kingdom and opened my eyes. 3 days have quickly passed. And this phenomenon is not unfamiliar. When I met that, I can't remember the name, but the encounter with a certain being, I met at the lowest floor of the serving command arc. At that time, I endured for over 10 years inside, only to find that it was an incredibly short period in reality upon regaining my senses. A phenomenon of space-time distortion. This is related to a true immortal. I can tell at a glance. It must be an intervention by the owner of Salt Mountain or something related to them. I feel fear, but this isn't a situation where I can flee just because I am afraid. I grit my teeth and transfer my main consciousness back to my seated detachment, standing Oblivion Avatar and explore Yuk Rin's treasure vault. Jin Mayol's corpse is gone. I frown as I exit the vault. Outside the treasure vault, only Beak Rin and Yuk Yo remain. The entire fighting demon pirate gang has disappeared. What happened? Well, the fighting demon pirate gang took the body of Jin Mayol and immediately fled. They must have thought cult leader would annihilate them upon your return. So they ran away. I feel another headache coming on. Damn it, I need their salt bone ship to transport Beak Rin. Since they ran away, there's nothing I can do. Of course, since the salt bone ship is modified under Buck Hyung Hwa's instruction, I can track it once it surfaces. However, I notice something strange and ask them. What about Yuk Rin? What happened to him? The fight between Kim Young-hoon and Yuk Rin seemed evenly matched, but in a long-term battle, it would be Kim Young-hoon's defeat. It's only natural, because Kim Young-hoon is just an avatar. There's no way the Yuk Rin who defeated Kim Young-hoon's avatar would simply stay put. Shouldn't he have entered this deep-sea island right away, using the teleportation array? However, to my question, Beak Rin and Yuk Yo exchange glances before speaking in a bewildered tone. Well, cult leader, we know you can channel the power of your main body through your avatar. Would you consider drawing the main body senses for a moment? Following Beak Rin's suggestion, I use the All-Heaven Sword to draw the power and consciousness of my main body. And when I sweep the deep-sea island with my consciousness, I freeze as if struck by lightning. The deep-sea island, which should have been fixed in place, is moving. No, although it is gradually slowing down, it is indeed still moving. How did this happen? We're not sure either. The distance between the middle zone of governing Dragon Island and this deep-sea island has increased, making it impossible to use the teleportation array, so we're trapped here. Just what? While taken aback, I spread my consciousness even further to find out how the deep-sea island is moving. And during that process, I realized something. Wuvung, Pinglai Island, above the Salt Mountain. I shift my main consciousness back to my main body, and along with the avatar on Deep Sea Island, begin chanting the mantra of the reversed Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique. Wovung, the Salt Mountain I am sitting on starts to emit light. Simultaneously, in the Deep Sea Island where my avatar is located, the Salt Crystal Palace also begins to glow. This time, since I am not inside the Salt Crystal Palace, my consciousness is not pulled into that world. However, I can clearly feel it. They are pulling each other, and that force is unexpectedly immense. I chuckle wryly and say, seems we won't need the help of the fighting demon pirate gang. The attraction force between Pinglai Island's Salt Mountain and Yuk Rin's Deep Sea Island's Palace is pulling towards each other with tremendous power. Beak Rin and Yuk Yo. And the entire Deep Sea Island where my avatar is situated is being drawn toward this side. I send a voice transmission throughout the Twilight Domain and Pinglai Island. Rejoice, everyone. The operation to rescue the guardian ghost king Beak Rin has finally concluded. Now, all that remains is to wait for Jiao Yom and escape from Pinglai Island. Upon hearing my explanation, Beak Rin and Yuk Yo's eyes widen in astonishment as they ask, are we really returning to the order, cult leader? Are you saying you really returned to Pinglai Kingdom? I nod in response to both of their questions. The two seem momentarily satisfied with my answer, but then they look at each other again. I sigh, sensing the subtle emotions between them. It appears that for these two, the question of where they will return to has become more important than simply going back. Thus, for the moment, the issues facing our order have been resolved. In the Wuji Religious Hall's conference room, I brief everyone with my main body about everything that has happened. That's a relief. Although I fought that Yuk Rin guy for a day and night and inflicted a fatal injury, it still drained my avatar's energy. I was a bit worried. Thankfully, it seems to have worked out well. Kim Young-hoon sighs in relief, and Oh Hyun-seok agrees with him. Jian Myung-hoon nods stoically, and both Kim Yeon and Buk Hyung-hwa smile faintly at the same time. Seo Ran shows a disappointed expression after hearing about the relationship between Yuk Yo and Baek Rin, but gets a glare from Shi-ho. It's really fortunate that things worked out. However, there's still one issue we need to discuss. I look at Kim Young-hoon, Seo Ran, Shi-ho, and Buk Hyung-hwa as I speak. Conqueror King, you said there haven't been any results from researching Pinglai Island yet, right? Yes, we have examined the axes of Pinglai Island's formations, but we couldn't find any clues to rescue Sir Ching-mun Ryong. Buk Hyung-hwa reports the fact with regretful eyes. For the past 80 years, Buk Hyung-hwa, along with Seo Ran, Shi-ho, and others have been exploring and researching Pinglai Island to save Ching-mun Ryong. However, they couldn't find any clues here. In that case, to obtain a proper clue, we must reunite the Salt Crystal Palace and the Salt Mountain of Pinglai Island. Or we must enter the Illusion Formation to gather information from the people of that world. Particularly, the Queen of the Pinglai Kingdom seems to know something, so asking her would be most appropriate. However, there's a problem with this. First, regarding the first method. That deep-sea island, was it called Cherry Blossom Dragon Island? Even though Cherry Blossom Dragon Island is quickly coming here, the interdimensional distance in the deep sea is too vast. I can't figure out where exactly that unidentifiable hand has thrown us. Considering the attraction force between the Salt Mountain and the palace, the speed at which they are getting closer, and the current gap between Cherry Blossom Dragon Island and Pinglai Island in the deep sea, it will take a long time for Cherry Blossom Dragon Island to reach here. Approximately about 7 years. This is entirely because the depths of the ancient Force Realm's deep sea are much more unstable than the Chaos Realm domain in each middle realm. I've heard that in the Chaos Realm domains, space frequently gets distorted, and distances lengthen or decrease randomly. The entrance to Lofty Dragon True Person Storage Scroll I went to last time is a place close to the stable realm, and is very stable, so it can't be compared to a true Chaos Realm domain. However, the depths of the Ancient Force's deep sea are even more severely distorted. It isn't for nothing that even integration stage cultivators have a 50% chance of getting lost if they fall into the deep sea. Still, Pinglai Island and Cherry Blossom Dragon Island are linked by attraction force, allowing them to approach each other rapidly, hence the estimation of 7 years. But 7 years means that the time is now drawing near. Buk Hyung-hwa asks worriedly, if it's 7 years, isn't the grand event just around the corner? That's right, so even if the palace merges with the Salt Mountain again, there won't be enough time to investigate properly. Therefore, Kim Yeon's face turns pale. It's too dangerous, Yoonhyan Oppa. At her words, the others also look at me with worried expressions. That's right, Seo Yoonhyan. Aren't you saying you'll enter Pinglai Kingdom alone to investigate? It's dangerous. Moreover, didn't you say the time ratio is different in that world? Yeah, Yoonhyan. If you're asleep when you exit to the bright cold realm, wouldn't that just be over? After listening to everyone, I look at Kim Yeon. It's okay, she will wake me up. I slowly explain my plan. I don't intend to spend time investigating without knowing how much time is passing inside. Using the wonderfully mysterious innate heart cannon, I will partially connect mine and Kim Yeon's minds. Afterwards, I will enter Pinglai Kingdom, gather information there, and when the time approaches, Kim Yeon will send me a signal through the wonderfully mysterious innate heart cannon. I will then exit from Pinglai Kingdom. That should work. Kim Yeon bites her lip with a worried look in her eyes. I don't want to take such a risk on purpose either. There's a chance that some suspicious mechanism might activate while I'm inside and swallow my memories. Of course, according to the conditions for regaining awareness mentioned by Yuk Yo, it doesn't seem likely. In any case, there is some risk involved. But I shake my head with a determined expression. I'm sorry, everyone, but I must find a way to release Ching-mun Ryong from the salt pillar. We can't delay any longer. Ching-mun Ryong is still asleep as a salt pillar in that world. I can't leave him like that indefinitely. The ancient force is a world that reacts particularly well to the great mountain-splitting emperor technique and the power of salt. I must discover the reason while I remain in this world. If not in the ancient force realm, there might not be another chance. Realizing my firm will, they sigh. Kim Yeon, knowing she can't stop my will, bites her lip and lowers her head. All right, if you insist, go and come back safely. Thank you. I express my gratitude to her and everyone in the Wuji religious order. Well, with Kim Yeon's wonderfully mysterious innate heart cannon attached to my heart essence, I stand in front of the Salt Crystal Palace. I am curious about Yuk Rin's documents inside, but for now, this is more urgent. By the way, are you also coming along? I ask Yuk Yo, who stands beside me. Of course, it's my homeland after all. As expected, Yuk Yo decides to accompany me inside. Her reason is to return to Pinglai Kingdom. However, I look at her and then at Beek Rin. What will you do, Beek Rin? I don't know. Beek Rin seems to hope that Yuk Yo will drag him inside. Yet Yuk Yo does not plead with Beek Rin to come along. She seems to understand as well. Beek Rin already has too many precious people in this world. Can't you stay in this world with us, princess? But Yuk Yo shakes her head at Beek Rin's words. I'm sorry, Sir Beek Rin, to me that world is truly my home. Beek Rin hesitates to follow her, and Yuk Yo approaches him and gently touches his hand. They stay like that for a moment, then the two part. Is this how it ends? I feel an inexplicable regret as I walk toward the palace. Yuk Yo walks toward the palace with me. While reciting the mantra of the reversed Great Mountain-Splitting Emperor technique, I place my hand on Yuk Yo's shoulder. Buang. And as we step into the entrance of the palace. Payet. I feel my consciousness shifting again and arrive in another world. The scene before my eyes change, and I am able to see a new landscape. A corridor lined with numerous soldiers. In front of me stands the Queen of Pinglai Kingdom, and Yuk Yo, whose shoulder I have been holding, has somehow transformed from a carp demon of the nascent soul stage into a human princess wearing beautiful ancient ceremonial robes. The Queen of Pinglai Kingdom wipes her tears upon seeing Yuk Yo. Welcome back, my daughter. Mother. Yuk Yo hurriedly runs to the Queen, and I watch the reunion of mother and daughter for a moment. After a while, the Queen of Pinglai Kingdom looks at me and says, there was a bit of a commotion earlier, but considering the circumstances, I will overlook it. After all, you have brought my daughter back to me, and not welcoming guests properly would be disgraceful. I will hold a banquet, so please enjoy. However, I shake my head and reply, I did not bring the princess to be entertained at a banquet. I have something I wish to know. I look at the Queen of Pinglai Kingdom. Please tell me everything you know. Chapter 400, With the Wind 5. She looks at me for a moment before speaking. All right, if my benefactor wishes for information, I shall provide it. I walk with her down the palace corridor. After walking for a while, the Queen, Yuk Yo, and I arrive at the library. The first thing she does upon arriving at the library is to dismiss all the subjects and guards before entering a corner of the library. Your Majesty, this place is. It is time for you to know as well the various affairs of Pinglai Kingdom. It's when the Queen places her palm on a corner of a wall. Flash. The wall seems to glow, and then it turns into a bright white door that opens. Creak. The Queen walks inside the door, and Yuk Yo and I follow her inside. And I can't help but be startled by the scene beyond the door. Darkness. The entire world is covered in pitch-black darkness. Yet strangely, I feel that I can discern what lays ahead in this darkness. It isn't due to using consciousness or awakening a special sense. Despite being in darkness, I can see ahead. It's a peculiar space that can only be explained that way. And I have been in such a space once before. This is the same space as when I faced that being. At the bottom of the serving command arc, it's the exact same feeling as when I met them, presumed to be a true immortal. Step. I follow the Queen, and though Yuk Yo is flustered, fumbling as she moves forward, she manages to walk well. How long do we walk through the darkness? Twinkle. Unlike my previous encounter with them, I see a bright white light twinkling ahead. Yuk Yo, possibly delighted to see the light, quicken her pace as she moves toward it. Meanwhile, I recall the warnings given by many beings to be wary of the light, and decide to slow down instead. Come this way, what are you doing? Understood. As I hesitate, the queen looks at me curiously and speaks. We arrive at the place with the light, and I can finally see what the source of the light is. Salt. It is, amusingly enough, salt. Salt is placed on a small brazier, and a soft white light emanates from it, illuminating the surroundings. The surroundings are the library. A library shrouded in darkness. The queen takes out 3 chairs from one side of the library and hands them to Yuk Yo and me before taking out another for herself to sit on. Sit down, as this could become a dull story. Please understand that I cannot offer you tea. That's all right. By the way, is it not uncomfortable? Except for the darkness and the light, it is quite pleasant. I watch the light emanating from the salt with a sense of caution. Isn't it true that important discussions should take place not in the light but in the darkness? The Queen of Pinglai Kingdom gives a meaningful smile at my words. It seems you fear the light. It's not so much fear as it is caution. So you know who you fear. You fear the god of light, don't you? I flinch in surprise and stand up, clutching my head while looking back and forth between Yuk Yo and the Queen of Pinglai Kingdom. But neither the Queen nor even Yuk Yo show any reaction, only blinking their eyes. Even more so, I'm also okay. No matter how much I have recently developed a slight tolerance to higher beings, nothing unusual occurring despite higher beings being mentioned is strange. It's when I am bewildered. When one looks up at the summit of a great mountain, their neck cranes because the mountain is so tall. However, if the mountain is partly shrouded in clouds, their gaze stops at the clouds with no strain on the neck. With her words, I realize that this space is safe. Is it all right to mention them? At least for my daughter and I. As for you, I cannot say. If you're worried, don't mention them recklessly. I understand for now. Then this light. I ask while looking at the white light seeping from the salt. The queen smiles faintly and says, Axel Imperial Venerable. No, do you dreamers call them the god of Salt Mountain? I'm startled by those words but quickly calm down. Come to think of it, it makes sense. Since Pinglai Island is obviously the domain of the owner of Salt Mountain, it isn't surprising that they are considered a god or Buddha Venerable of Pinglai Island. Hold on, then what existence is the Wheel Imperial Venerable? While I am puzzled, he pats my shoulder to stop me. He is telling me it's best not to mention that name in the darkness. Ah yes, I understand. Having experienced firsthand through Jingli how serious the consequences can be for mentioning a name carelessly, I remain silent. The queen points to the glowing salt and says, According to the legends, the Axel Imperial Venerable stole the light from the domain of light. When they shaped this world, they used the light they had taken to illuminate the world, and what remained, they bestowed upon us. Then is all the light in Pinglai Island safe? Then why did we come into such a dark place? This question suddenly occurs to me, and I ask. But she shakes her head and says, Light can go anywhere. Do you know how much external light comes in whenever Pinglai Kingdom is connected to the outside world? The light from outside has already mixed to some extent. The pure light of the Axel Imperial Venerable remains only here. I heard that on the day Pinglai Island opened, Hei Lin forbid the light of the ancient force realm itself, but apparently, even that wasn't enough. Well, I understand. Then may I ask what I'm curious about? Ask away. I'll tell you what I know or recommend a book from the library. She gestures with a gentle voice to the dark library around us. I contemplate what to ask, then question her. Did Yuk Rin ever enter this library? She shakes her head at my words. In this library, only those who know the Axel Imperial Venerable can enter. Others can't even perceive the entrance door. The Imperial Venerable set it up that way. There are a few more restrictions, but they are trivial. In any case, he did not know the Axel Imperial Venerable, so he could not set foot here. I see. The entry condition is unexpectedly formidable. One must know the governing immortal to enter. Among mortals, only someone like me or Cohria would dare to enter. I shake my head and continue with the next question. It's a seemingly trivial but important question. Why are the people of this country human? The Queen of Pinglai Kingdom gives me a look as if she doesn't understand what gibberish I'm saying. Ah, it seems you don't quite understand. Where should I start explaining? If you asked Earthlings, why is the dominant species on Earth humans, you would likely receive the same kind of look. However, I, having lived in this world for thousands of years, know it well. In this world, the human race is not a particularly noble existence. They are just one of the many, many intelligent species, and are among those who occupy the 6 pillars of the heaven tribe in the bright cold realm due to their vicious nature, even without any backing from an esteemed one. They are remarkable if they are remarkable, but they are not such a special race. A moderately dominant species that found its place in the world. That is the human race. But Pinglai Kingdom is strange. Why is it that, despite numerous races entering Pinglai Island to play roles in the world, do they walk around in human form in Pinglai Kingdom? Yukyo is a hybrid carp of the demon race, but in Pinglai Kingdom, she is a half-human, half-dragon. Jin Mayol is of the fighting ghost race, but upon entering he's a perfectly normal human. Of course, there are plenty of various demon spirits, but it's a bit unnatural for the ruler of this world to be deliberately human. After listening to my explanation, the queen seems to think for a moment before speaking. I don't really know about that. To us, this is the natural world, but I do know where there might be information about why specifically humans are the dominant species. The queen points to one side of the library. It's a library filled with bamboo scrolls. Read the information over there. You might find what you're looking for, perhaps. I get up from my seat and take out the bamboo scrolls. It's a kind of mythological text. Among them, a book titled Pinglai Chronicles has a shallow account of how the world of Pinglai Kingdom was created. In the beginning, there existed a world full of illusionary dreams. The Axel Imperial Venerable felt sorry for this, and with the help of the Wheel Imperial Venerable, Hyongo Chinese letter / Black Ancient, and 3 heavenly kings created a new heaven. The Wheel Imperial Venerable rolled the wheel to guide virtuous souls under the new heaven, and the 3 heavenly kings performed all sorts of miracles to cultivate a land where we could live. The primordial giant Hyongo, at the request of the Axel Imperial Venerable, made a promise to prevent the snakes from entering this land. Hyongo. Seeing a familiar name, I look at the description of this being. The shadow of Hyongo when they made the promise became the flesh of our souls, giving birth to us. We have 2 eyes and 2 ears. It's a description of humans. Although the size of the entity known as Hyongo being described is a bit, well, very large. The first giant who covered the entire sky with one hand. That is Hyongo Black Ancient. The contents of the bamboo scroll end there. Looking around, there is another scroll that explains about Hyongo. They are the greatest divine beast. They are called the god who governs all oaths and contracts. As the owner of names, they are said to preside over naming of all in heaven and earth. Black ancient paper, black ancient plaque. Only then do I understand why the most revered contract in the ancient force realm is called black ancient paper. The divine spirit governing all oaths and contracts is none other than Hyongo. However, I suddenly feel my heart begin to pound. Wait, have I just learned the true name of a great being? Tingle Tingle. It's fine here and now, but if I remember this name when I go outside. I'll be watched, I'll be watched, I'll be watched. Thump, thump, thump. As I calm my heart trembling like an aspen tree, I continue reading the bamboo scrolls and find something reassuring. It's about an existence recorded in another scroll besides this one. Zija. They are another divine beast. They are the beast entrusted with symbolizing all peace and well-being. In these bamboo scrolls, they refer to immortal beasts as divine beasts. The names used to express immortal beasts are not their true names, so knowing them isn't a problem. Thus, the name Hyongo is not the true name of the being, but refers to the species of this being. And I realize one more thing here. The meaning behind humans becoming the dominant species of Pinglai Kingdom due to the entity known as Hyongo is. Just as names like Black Dragon or Lofty Dragon are given when a dragon race becomes an immortal beast. If a human becomes an immortal beast, the name Go Chinese letter / ancient is attached to them. Cherug. After resolving my necessary questions, I roll up the bamboo scrolls and put them back. While I was reading the scrolls, it seemed that the 2 others became bored. Yukyo tried to move one of the chairs, and the queen began lecturing her on her behavior. I interrupt their conversation and ask a question. This has been a great help. May I ask the next question? Go ahead. It is regarding the Axel Imperial Venerable. I assume you know well about this topic. I do indeed. You might feel it's blasphemous, but please answer, is the Imperial Venerable truly dead? Chapter 401, With the Wind 6. Why do you think that? I once heard someone mention that they have died. It's something I had heard from Cohreal. However, upon reflecting, there's no need to trust anything Cohreal has said. No, even without Cohreal, there are pieces of evidence suggesting that being is dead. The biggest evidence is the will I felt from the voice when I first performed the reversed Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique. That will was definitely a legacy. It felt like a being that seemed to have turned into a corpse, miraculously rising and barely grasping my arm, whispering its will to me. It's a meaning that can only be thought of as a legacy. And I have my own evidence as well. Ahem. Upon hearing my words, she seems to be choosing her words carefully before speaking. They do not die. Just as light does not die, they are the personification of the concept of repentant enlightenment. One can say that the personified concept has scattered and spread throughout the world, but a word died is not quite the correct term. Is that so? Indeed, at the level of a true immortal, it seems possible to exist in such a manner. Then let's assume that's the case for now. Do you know how to restore someone who was turned into a salt pillar by the Imperial Venerable? She gives a wry smile at my question. It's a story from mythology. There is a myth that has been passed down about those who glimpsed the true form of the Imperial Venerable and turned into salt pillars. Was the way to save them also passed down? She looks at me and asks in response to my question. Let me ask you one thing. How did you come here? I crossed over by using the formula left by the Imperial Venerable. When you used that formula, did your body not turn into salt? When I wasn't used to it, it did. But now that I am accustomed to it, I only generate a little salt around me, and my body doesn't change. Oh, so you don't change anymore. But that's not what's important. Why do you think the palace of Pinglai Kingdom is on top of the Salt Mountain? I don't know. At the Queen's ensuing words, I am taken aback. The Salt Mountain supporting the palace is not just common rock salt. They are those who once glimpsed the wisdom of the Imperial Venerable. Though, I am surprised, standing up involuntarily. That means, even the Salt Mountain, where my main body resides, is also. It's a chilling revelation. The Salt Mountain is also a result similar to Chingmun Ryong. As I am shocked, she continues speaking with an entirely calm expression. Do not fear. Those who witnessed the wisdom of the Imperial Venerable may have had their bodies turned into salt mountains, but their souls went to the world of dreams and became their disciples. Pardon? And the opposite is true as well. Those who sought their wisdom in the world of dreams had their bodies turned into salt pillars and crossed over to our world to inherit their wisdom. I am one of those descendants. At her following words, I let out a low sigh. It's not about becoming a salt pillar. It's merely waking up from a dream and moving to another world. In our case, it's about falling into a dream. So if you want to awaken someone who has become a salt pillar, you should also go to the world where they went and bring them back. Does that mean Chingmun Ryong is in Pinglai Kingdom? That I do not know. I do not know how many worlds the Imperial Venerable has created. It could be our world, or it could be an entirely different world. Her words remind me of something. My memory of traveling through the dream world while I was turning into a salt pillar. According to her, that dream world is the real world. Throb throb. I look at her and yuck yo and ask, is there evidence that this world and the world accessed through the salt pillars are real? By my standards, this world is indeed an unstable world. It feels like a model garden created by the owner of Salt Mountain with the help of other divine beings. Yet the inhabitants of this world treat our world as the world of dreams. And the world I visited from the head realm definitely had a strong sense of being a dream. The sensation when I woke up from the dream by Hong Fan was so very vivid. That world is indeed a dream. However, according to the Queen, that world is not a dream. Everything is confusing and unpleasant. I take a deep breath. May I step out for a moment? Do as you please, but when you return, you will have to enter from the beginning again. I stop inwardly, reciting the formula of the reversed Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique. My vision blurs, and I find myself standing in front of the pure white salt crystal palace. I'm back. I look back at the salt crystal palace. A world where my actual existence, Chinese letter, is in question. It was an extremely unpleasant experience. I exit the space where the palace is located. Kagagugu. Cherry Blossom Dragon Island, where the Palace of Salt Crystals stands, is speeding across the deep sea. Beak Rin. At my call, Beak Rin appeared. Yes, cult leader. How many years have passed? 5 years. I am speechless, closing my mouth. Indeed, that world is strange. They say that in fresh leisure, one doesn't notice the axe hand rotting. It's exactly the same. We had exchanged just a few words, yet such an absurd amount of time has passed. A world where each claims the other to be a dream. Which side is correct? I let out a low sigh and organized my thoughts above Cherry Blossom Dragon Island. In the midst of this, Beak Rin asks me a question. Is Princess Yuk Yo doing well? In Pinglai Kingdom, I wouldn't know if even a Shichen 2-hour period has passed. I see. I ask Beak Rin a question. Why didn't you follow when you wanted to? He flinches at my words and then gives a bitter smile. Is the cult leader asking even when you know how many friends I have here? Is that so? But it seems like you're afraid of something else. He flinches at my words and speaks. Cult leader has seen the truth. I am afraid of confirming the truth. The truth? Yes. If I enter that world and realize it's the real reality, then what should I consider our original home? But if I say that world is a dream, I won't be able to endure it there. Listening to Beak Rin's worries, I speak. What if both are real? What if the two worlds are just places you can travel between through a peculiar teleportation array? What would he do then? However, Beak Rin shakes his head as if he can't understand my words. Cult leader, this world and that world can never coexist. One of them must be a dream. Why is that? A simple example. If both worlds are reality, hasn't strategist Yon Wei already shattered her hopes in both worlds? Hearing of Yon Wei, my heart feels heavy. It's the same for all of us, cult leader. Every one of us had to endure heart-wrenching pain in that world. It felt like the very purpose of the world was to inflict suffering on us. Of course, reality is no different, but the world within Pinglai Island is even more relentless in that regard. As a result, the vast majority of our fellow followers had to endure painful experiences there. Even Princess Yuk Yo herself. Being born in that world, she came to this world and lost all her siblings, growing up being abused by Yuk Rin. If we were to tell her that all the misfortune she's faced in this world is real, it would be too much for her to bear. Listening to Beak Rin's words, I let out a small sigh. I see. I think I understand why it feels unpleasant, and why I feel my identity is being shaken. Whether this world is a dream, or that world is a dream isn't the important part. What does it matter if it's a dream or not? If I think about it that way, am I not already dreaming my 19th dream? The pain and the scars experienced in each world are too great. I understand that feeling all too well. My life has been nothing but pain. Over the course of 19 lives, I've truly experienced too much. Crying out to the heavens because I couldn't become a peak master. Crying out to the heavens because I couldn't break through the 7th star of chi refining. Losing my mind and experiencing hallucinations. Seeing someone I trust and consider my brother falling into despair. I even witnessed that friend take their own life. I saw the lover I thought I could give everything to, whom I met for the first time in this world, die torn in two before my eyes. I even have memories of my loved ones being massacred and living in madness. There was a time I once committed suicide to avoid being turned into a puppet by an old monster. There was a time I experienced an unjust death. And there was a time I had to watch someone who liked me for 1,000 years go insane, while my soul was preserved in a puppet. I've seen my master explode to death. I've watched my friends and benefactors be brutally murdered. I've even removed my own testicles by my own will. I've witnessed the connections I gave my heart to be annihilated by heavenly punishment. And I've memories of having to end a loved one who went against that fate by my own hands. I experienced being taken over and eroded by a sinister snake, confirmed that what I wanted most is to die and be buried in the ground, and had the amusing experience of dying while being pitied by my alter ego. So many things have tormented me. After all of that, how can I not say that life is a curse? However, despite that, all of it is my reality. None of it can be considered a dream. Beak Rin. Yes. You said one of the two worlds must be a dream. For me, yes. Seeing the enraged Yon Wei and Jian Myohun in Pinglai Kingdom and watching the others, I thought something was strange. Why not just consider both as reality? But it seems others can't endure having two realities. In that case, it's simple. Consider them both dreams. Pardon? Don't try to find the reality in this world. After all, whether this place is real or not cannot be proven by any means. But there is only one thing that remains in this world anyway. A being who once taught me said, the heart never disappears, even if it is regarded as false, even if it is mocked as a mere function of the lungs or of the metal attribute. The heart does not disappear. Beek Rin appears puzzled, as if he doesn't understand the meaning of my words. Well, after all, this kind of contemplation can only be truly understood by someone like me, who has endured at least 19 realities. I chuckle as I leave Beek Rin behind and return to the palace with a clear mind. Let me know if you change your mind. I'll take you to Yuk Yo's world anytime. Beek Rin did not respond. After entering the palace, I returned to my original position through the library passage that the queen had shown me. Have you sorted out your complicated feelings a bit? Something like that. Now I'll ask the final question. What is it? I asked the queen. You said that becoming a salt pillars means crossing over to another world, right? Correct. Then, I'm curious about the exact criteria for crossing over to another world, regaining awareness there and coming back. For example, in this world, you can leave by seizing the crown. Does something similar exist in the other worlds as well? She chuckles at my question. You're a bit mistaken. The way that dreamers escape this world isn't like that. Of course, regaining awareness is as Yuk Yo explained. I was the one who told her before. However, the proper way to exit this world was never about seizing royal power or such. I heard something changed long ago, which turned this world into what it is now. I'll tell you how dreamers can properly leave our world. Once you find out, it will be easy to leave. I listen intently to her explanation. After hearing it all, I nod. Thank you for the explanation. Is there anything else you're curious about? The most urgent matters have been addressed. I do have more questions, but... For instance, regarding ancient force. It seems time is running out. A consciousness is poking me. Kim Yon is calling for me from outside. It must mean that time is running out. I stand up from my seat. Thank you for your answers. I will take my leave now. As I stand up, Yuk Yo stands up as well. Cult leader, I have something to say. What is it, Princess Yuk Yo? Please take me with you as well. What? She speaks with a determined look in response to my question. I wish to deliver my final words to Sir Beek Rin. That would be great, but are you sure? Yuk Yo nods, and I exchange a glance with the queen. The queen nods as if she has discussed it with Yuk Yo. Very well, then let us go. Grabbing Yuk Yo's shoulder, I leave Pinglai Kingdom. When I open my eyes, I see Pinglai Island right in front of Cherry Blossom Dragon Island. The two deep-sea islands are facing each other, enveloped in barriers like air bubbles. Sir Beek Rin. As Yuk Yo enters this world, she calls for Beek Rin, and I see Beek Rin hastily flying over. Stepping aside to let them talk, I manipulate attraction force. Kagagugu. The air bubbles of Cherry Blossom, Dragon Island, and Pinglai Island merge. Cherry Blossom Dragon Island moves inside Pinglai Island. Kung. Simultaneously, the Salt Mountain and Salt Crystal Palace begin to resonate. I lift the Salt Crystal Palace and slowly bring it over the Salt Mountain. Passes at. Releasing the seated detachment, standing Oblivion Avatar, I take hold of the palace with my main body and gently place the palace back in its original position. Salt Crystal Palace and the Salt Mountain become one. Simultaneously, I can feel a force within Pinglai Island growing increasingly stronger. Although we aren't immediately falling into an illusion, it feels like the power within Pinglai Island is pushing against the laws outside. So it was this. I compare the power inside Pinglai Island to the mantra of my reversed Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique and try to mimic that power. I have been trapped within Pinglai Island, constantly attempting to grasp and mimic the power of the Salt Mountain. And it is only after returning Pinglai Island to its original state that I can finally bring this power into my hands. Around me, the heaven and earth spiritual energy is surging like grains of salt. I direct the surging heaven and earth spiritual energy towards some form of attraction force surrounding Pinglai Island. The attraction force dissipates into nothingness. Finally, I have obtained the power to escape my misfortune. Now I just have to wait. The day to leave the ancient force realm is not far off. Chapter 402, With the Wind 7. The storage scroll of lofty, dragon true person. Under the Zijai worship layer lies the care layer. How long have I been waiting in a lotus position on the altar above? Kagagung. I feel the entire storage scroll reverberate. I open my eyes wide and smile. They've come. Now it is time to leave. Inside the storage scroll of lofty dragon true person, several forces enter. The black-scaled fish commanding sect is the first to reach the interior of the storage scroll. Right after them, the two four-axis stage cultivators from the tall tree race and the paired wings race enter. Finally, I see Jiao Yom and his party enter the storage scroll. They slowly advance upward, making their way through the interior of the storage scroll. I look down at them from the physically uppermost care layer and chuckle. This is quite a unique feeling. Just watching them progress in their expedition is entertaining enough that I'm not bored. I can also observe how each race approaches the expedition. The black-scaled fish commanding sect is the same as before. But behind them, I can see Jiao Yom leading the demon race below the heavenly being stage, bustling and rushing about. Jiao Yom is proceeding in that manner, and the tall tree and paired wings races are. They are advancing rapidly through the storage scroll in an interesting way. First, the four-axis stage cultivator from the tall tree race uses wood attribute spells to grow trees in the field, and the two cultivators climb up. Then, the cultivator from the paired wings race spreads their wings, grabs the tall tree race's four-axis stage cultivator, and glides downwards, swiftly traversing the storage scroll. They bypass the flight prohibition within the storage scroll in such a manner. I observe them briefly before turning my gaze back to the black-scaled fish commanding sect. Once again, Hyong-Guai is leading the black-scaled fish commanding sect. However, this time it seems they couldn't find a suitable four-axis cultivator, as only people from the black-scaled fish commanding sect are present. The expedition through the storage scroll progresses swiftly, and it doesn't take long for Nok-Ju and Beek-Wyack, the cultivators from the tall tree race and paired wings race, to fly here. The two heavenly tribe cultivators laugh joyfully, debating whether to pick the heavenly lotus fruits from the Melia tree, while I sense the black scale fish commanding sect defeating the calamity flame and advancing below. And finally, just 3 drops. Please let me have only 3 drops of the heavenly lotus fruits juice. Jiao Yom and the demon race, along with the two heavenly tribe cultivators, meet. The history within the storage scroll does not deviate much from my previous life, except for the absence of Xiao Li. Jiao Yom, as expected, kneels before the Heaven tribe, and when the two Heaven tribe cultivators ridicule and insult his wife, he becomes enraged and starts a battle with them. Kagagung. Beek-Wyack unfolds his four-axis canopy, and together with Nok-Ju, they pressure Jiao Yom. Unlike before, Jiao Yom seems unable to properly exert his strength against the two Heaven tribe cultivators. The reason is obvious. It's because I've collected and stored all the artifacts Jiao Yom would have brought. Currently, the black-scaled fish commanding sect and Jiao Yom have likely moved up without gaining much advantage from the lower layers. This is because I, having entered the storage scroll before them, have gathered and hidden all the treasures within. Perhaps because of this, the black-scale fish commanding sect and Jiao Yom have reached the care layer much faster than before, and Jiao Yom is being overwhelmed by the Heaven tribe cultivators due to not obtaining any proper benefits. At this rate, Jiao Yom will probably lose. The black-scale fish commanding sect, having reached the care layer, show no interest in the forces of the four-axis stage cultivators engaging in battle. Instead, they gradually move toward the Melia tree and begin examining the Tingwa nearby it. The black-scaled fish commanding sect came to acquire something called the recognizing Sin Tingwa, or whatever to escape from Hyun Eum. I have no particular business with them. My objective is those four-axis stage cultivators anyway. But if there is something that piques my interest, I'm a bit curious what that Hyun-Guai bastard is up to. I pass by the disciples of the black-scale fish commanding sect, who are diligently sifting through the Tingwa near the Melia tree at the lakeside, and approach Hyung Gwai, who is examining a tingwa in a secluded spot. Since my physical body is currently on the outskirts of the nether ghost realm, it's impossible for anyone to perceive me unless they are a ghost cultivator who has cultivated the ghost path method and transformed their nascent soul into a ghost king. I just can't figure out what this guy is up to. I approach Hyung Gwai to see what he is doing. He is focused on searching for something without paying any attention to his surroundings. Then, at a certain moment, found it, Western Heaven Tingwa. Clench. Hyung Gwai's face lights up with joy as he pulls out something that looks like pitch-black paper from the tingwa and clutches it tightly. Flinch. I'm a little surprised by this sight. If it's the Western Heaven Tingwa, isn't it the one Yakyo mentioned? I glance at the Western Heaven Tingwa in Hyung Gwai's hand. As expected, it's interestingly made of pitch-black paper, making it impossible to discern what is drawn on it. Yet somehow, Hyung Gwai seems to see something as he sinisterly caresses the center of the Western Heaven Tingwa. What is this bastard up to? What kind of secret does Hyung Gwai hold? Just as I try to observe him more closely. Hyung Gwai suddenly raises his head. Hyung Gwai and I are simultaneously startled. He's looking in my direction, and he is surprised. I am momentarily startled, but quickly understand the direction of his gaze and feel relieved. Hyung Gwai isn't looking at me, but above me. Is there something over there? I turn my head in the direction of Hyung Gwai's gaze. In the distance, there is a hanging scroll depicting a map of the bright cold realm. It's a huge scroll hanging on all sides of the care layer. I glance at the map of the bright cold realm, but can't find anything special. Just what is Hyung Gwai looking at? Determined to uncover Hyung Gwai's secret today, I glare at him. The subject of my scrutiny for a while, Hyung Gwai, chuckles and floats the ink-black paper called the Western Heaven Tingwa into the air. Wu-young. The four symbols nascent soul unique to the black-scaled fish commanding sect rises into the air, creating a spatial rift. He tosses the Western Heaven Tingwa into the spatial rift, and then dissolves the four symbols nascent soul. To see you in the Saha world, how strange. He suddenly starts muttering incomprehensible words while looking at the void. This bastard, is he crazy? I heighten my vigilance when Hyung Gwai starts acting unpredictably. Or is it some kind of secret art, drawing upon the power of some higher existence? The four symbols nascent soul secret art of the black-scaled fish commanding sect is specialized in borrowing power, so he might be trying to borrow the power of a true person. However, right after spouting strange words, Hyung Gwai proceeds to do something utterly incomprehensible. Pugwag. Hyung Gwai's nascent soul explodes. Immediately after, Hyung Gwai dies. He committed suicide. What in the? Unable to hide my bewilderment, I approach Hyung Gwai. He is dead. His face shows no sign of lingering attachment or regret. Just what is this? Hyung Gwai is a cultivator at the heavenly being stage, a promising talent with a bright future ahead. Yet this promising talent chose to abandon his life without a moment of hesitation. I can't comprehend it, so I examine Hyung Gwai's corpse multiple times. What are you, Hyung Gwai? It was the same in my previous life. When he died at Seo Lee's hands, he reacted as if it was a nuisance. If Hyung Gwai had been someone's split soul or had a means of resurrection, it might have been understandable. But I saw it clearly. Hyung Gwai's soul did not travel anywhere through the plane of soul. It simply headed beyond the outskirts of the netherworld to the afterlife, like the souls of ordinary people. In other words, Hyung Gwai died without a doubt. Completely. After examining Hyung Gwai's body, I realize I can possess his body since he died so cleanly. Yet somehow I feel uneasy. I should feel uneasy. Even a fool can tell. This guy is definitely related to a true immortal. Otherwise, he wouldn't have chosen death so nonchalantly. And the way he was intently staring at the hanging scroll of the bright cold realm just now, is he somehow connected to the bright cold realm itself? That is the only conclusion I can reach. I look at Hyung Gwai with a slightly uneasy expression, then turn around and walk towards Jaeoyom. Kagagugu. Jaeoyom halts and gasps for breath in front of an enormous forest. Ugh, these parasite-like heaven tribe bastards. Tears of blood stream down from his eyes. Just what is so precious about 3 drops of fruit juice that you can't spare them? Are you heaven tribe bastards, a bunch of miserly beggars who tremble at the thought of giving away even 3 drops of nectar? A sea of blood surges around him, trying to resist the forest. However, along with the forest, a massive beam of light descends from the sky and strikes Jao Yom. Flash. Chia. The sea of blood Jao Yom summoned evaporates in the light, along with his blood tears. He is being gradually cornered. What's so important about 3 drops of heavenly lotus fruit juice that you can't give even a speck of it? Quang. Blasted away by the combined power of the forest and beam of light, Jao Yom vomits dryly with dried blood tears. He doesn't even have the strength to move a single fin. Is this the end? It's then. Jao Yom notices something strange about his shadow. What is this? His shadow should have been that of a shark. However, his shadow has suddenly transformed into that of a monster with 19 heads. A small voice whispers in Jao Yom's ear. Lend me your body. Who are you? If you lend me your body, I will grant you what you desire. Do you not wish to cure your wife's illness? That. Jao Yom looks at the ominous shadow, unable to speak. But he tightly closes his eyes. I will lend you my body. Please grant me your power. After all, he has nothing left. There is no place to retreat. If that's the case, he has to at least grasp the suspicious demon spirit's hand. As soon as Jao Yom grants permission, the shadow clings to his body and begins to gradually permeate it. Beekwayak, who is radiating light from his wings, widens his eyes in rage. This bastard, what kind of sorcery are you casting, this sinister aura? However, Beekwayak can't finish his sentence. Kagagagugu. Guaya. An immense pressure engulfs the interior of Beekwayak's 4-axis canopy. Simultaneously, Jao Yom screams. Bizarre patterns are being etched all over his body. Currently, there is a madman the heaven and earth tribes fear the most after the heart tribe. It's the Mad Lord Circuits. Kaya Kua. The process of engraving is evidently painful, as Jao Yom rolls his eyes back and foams at the mouth with blood. Tension spreads across the faces of Beekwayak and Nokju. Did you see it, Cultivator Beak? I did. Something black entered that shark race's body. Is there a demon spirit within the storage scroll? Possibly. Be on your guard, for the Earth tribe, known for their sturdy bodies, to be writhing in such pain. This is no ordinary demon spirit. It's when Beekwayak and Nokju are concluding their preparations. Kagaguguk. The circuit on Jao Yom's body begins to glow, and simultaneously, the 3 great ultimates appear behind his head. What kind of sorcery is this? Cultivator Beak, for now, focus the attraction force within the canopy. I understand. However, at that moment, Kagagugu. The 3 great ultimates have appeared behind Jao Yom, and 4 axes emerge around him. Upon seeing this, Beekwayak and Nokju's eyes widen as if it will pop out. How? That shark race was at most at the early 4-axis stage. Could it be that the realm of that demon spirit is? The axes glow, and the characters engraved on them shine auspiciously. Longevity, wealth, health. And love of virtue. Just what is? It's not even a 5 elements axis. And in the next moment, Payet. The axes floating around Jao Yom form a 4-axis canopy and begin to devour the domain within Beekwayak's canopy. Beekwayak's face turns pale. This madness. Devouring a domain is a divine power only possible for integration stage grand cultivators, so how can a grand perfection 4-axis stage do such a thing? But whether his face pales or not, the true orthodox axis foundation centered around Jao Yom expands. The 5 blessings axis canopy instantly devours Beekwayak's domain and takes control of the surroundings. The scenery, which had been a temple atop a great mountain range, changes. Saya. It's a scenery similar to the Dead Earth domain they visited before entering the storage scroll. An endlessly sprawling desert. An unpleasant gray mist that darkens the sky. And at the center of it stands Jao Yom. However, they all can tell. That is not the mere shark race they had been facing moments ago. Wuvuawang. Sinister ghostly energy envelops Jao Yom. Then Jao Yom's gigantic form is engulfed by the ghostly energy and transforms. Beekwayak and Nokju's faces turn pale. Through Jao Yom's body, a dangerous entity is descending. They possess a body that shimmers with starlight, has 19 heads, and surrounding it, heaven and earth spiritual energy boils wildly in the form of white granules. Kugaguguk. Moreover, in the hands of that fearsome ghost, purple steam is boiling furiously, barking like a hunting dog. Uwa uwaria. Nakju, upon facing the ghost king, immediately flees. Kugaguk. He tries to use his own axis to escape from the ghost king's four-axis canopy. But it's futile. Kwang. Even when Nakju strikes with his axis, the four-axis canopy does not waver in the slightest. Nakju screams, What is this? It's no different from an integrated Tao domain. This demon spirit bastard, what kind of sorcery have you cast? Then the ghost king with 19 heads raises its hand and strikes down. Kwang. A single strike. Merely a single strike. Nakju is knocked back by the ghost king's descending hand, spewing spiritual liquid and faints. Beekwayak swallows hard and falls to his knees. How could an integration stage senior treat juniors like us so harshly? To him, that being is essentially a grand cultivator at the integration stage. What kind of four-axis cultivator's four-axis canopy can possess the same strength as a dimensional barrier? Please, I humbly ask that you convey your wishes. The ghost king with 19 heads looks satisfied with Beekwayak's attitude and opens its mouth. You shall receive my command and summon my main body to the bright cold realm. At those words, Beekwayak gulps nervously. He can understand. The entity before his eyes is a being from another dimension that has sent a split soul at the four-axis to integration level to the bright cold realm. This otherworldly being is coercing them to betray in order to invade the bright cold realm. If it becomes known that I sided with their side, I'll receive an execution order from my race. Beekwayak closes his eyes tightly. I must commit suicide. He fears the execution order from his race more than the immediate terror before him. But just then, sorry, but you can't do that. Clinge. Kurururu. The purple steam that has been seething in the massive ghost king's hands surges out like a rabid dog and flows into the heads of Beekwayak and Nakju. Kyaktehyak Tiuk. Beekwayak chokes for breath with tears streaming down his face. A life is precious and should not be wasted carelessly. If you help me, you shall be handsomely rewarded. His body won't move as he wills it. If I move, my soul will be dismantled. He can sense it. This unidentified old monster's purple spell can disassemble and scatter his soul and spirit in an instant. If that happens, resurrection be damned, it will be the end. What can he do if his soul and spirit is disintegrated? Beekwayak lets out a mournful groan and a deep sigh. I humbly pray for the venerable senior's mercy. Seeing Beekwayak and Nakju completely subdued, the 19-headed ghost king possessing Jio Yom's body laughs heartily. At last, the advent of our order upon the bright cold realm is near. Wait for me, human race grand alliance, I have returned. Chapter 403, With the Wind. We gathered in one place with joyful hearts. Everyone, listen. We are now heading to the true headquarters of the Wuji religious order. This is the true final destination of our long wanderings in the middle realms. We will enter the bright cold realm. At my words, the hundreds of millions of ghostly creatures of the Wuji religious order let out a ghostly wail, and the demon beast cultivators influenced by the conqueror King Buk Hyanghua's forces and the teachings of the Wuji religious order in the ancient force realm cheer in their own voices. I have already told the followers that the bright cold realm is our origin, and that the golden divine heavenly thunder sect in the head realm is no different from a sister sect. Honestly, Yon Wei may not want to admit it, but the Wuji religious order, which she calls a pseudo-religious cult, has already grown as massive as 100 golden divine heavenly thunder sects from Jin Byakuo's era. Wowung. As I listened to the cheers of the followers, I grasped the boiling power and attraction force surging from my entire body. Longevity, wealth, health, love of virtue. I have built the 4 blessings axes. I have reached the same level as Coatrial, who had first demonstrated the 5 blessings axes. Of course, if we go by this cycle, Coatrial is probably still stumbling around blind, unable to even build the 5 blessings axes, so I am ahead of him. And the 5 blessings axes make it overwhelmingly easier to reach the integration stage compared to the 5 elements axes. The 4-axis canopy created by the 5 blessings axes is essentially no different from the dimensional membrane of an early integration stage's integrated Tao domain. Those who build their axes with the 5 blessings naturally have an overwhelming advantage in entering the integration stage. Even Yon Wei said that she could have entered the integration stage whenever she wanted 40,000 years ago, but chose not to out of consideration for Han One's reputation. In fact, while I feel a strange disharmony between the vast cold heavenly circle and the 5 blessings axis foundation, I still feel as if I can reach the integration stage at any time. The strange thing is Coatreal. Despite having built all the axes of longevity, wealth, health, and love of virtue, Coatreal never rose to the integration stage. It's strange when I think about the cycle when he was with Jiu Ryon. If he didn't want to marry her, he could have just entered the integration stage ahead of her and refused. But he never reached the integration stage to the end. It's strange no matter how much I think about it. Why did Coatreal remain at the 4-axis stage, keeping the 5 blessings axes, without entering the integration stage? Someday I'll surely find out. In any case, I intend to rise to the integration stage as soon as we reach the bright cold realm. Facing the heavenly tribulation of the integration stage in the narrow deep sea islands difficult, since the energy of vanquishing evil and upholding righteousness from the heavenly lightning could harm the ghostly creatures. I'm also becoming quite skilled in seated detachment, standing oblivion, so I can perform dozens of strikes without relying on my physical body. At this level, I am at the integration stage even as a heart tribe. In other words, if I can raise my heaven and earth tribe's cultivation to the integration stage this time, I can properly manifest the 3 great ultimates of the integration stage. Bakyang is also improving her skills. In recent times, together with Kim Yon, she has remodeled the entire Twilight Domain into the Twilight Fortress. Now, the Twilight Domain has transformed into something akin to a mobile fortress rather than just a piece of land. If I modify the integration stage puppet that Kim Yon remembers into Buk Hyang-Hwa's style of integration stage puppet and transform it into a general CEO, I can match heaven, earth, heart, and puppet. And if that happens, Kuak, I clench my fist. Currently, my power surpasses the grand perfection integration stage to some extent. If the Mad Lord's her at her prime comes, I should be able to take an arm. If the cultivation of the heaven and earth tribes each reach the grand perfection integration stage, I can defeat her in her prime. To think that I must raise all heaven, earth, heart, and puppet to the grand perfection integration stage to defeat her in her prime. As I suddenly think of that fact, I let out a small sigh but accept it as it is. A millennium after ascending, the Mad Lord grinded down and embedded 200 integration stage grand cultivators and demon kings, each as subsidiary parts for her. It's not for nothing that Jang Ik said her aura alone was of the star-shattering stage. Anyway, for us, we have Buk Hyang-Hwa. Currently, Buk Hyang-Hwa is only waiting for the opportunity to evolve into a 2-pattern law talent. She will also eventually become a 1-pattern law talent like the Mad Lord, so there are no problems. Kagagugu. Aligning with the wavelengths of the Salt Mountain on Pinglai Island and the Salt Crystal Palace, I recite the mantra of the reversed Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique. Payet. The Salt Mountain and the Salt Crystal Palace shrink, becoming small enough to fit in my hand. This is a miniaturization spell commonly used by cultivators. For those at the heavenly being stage, the best they can do is miniaturize a single sect, but for those at the grand perfection 4-axis stage, miniaturizing a mountain range of such magnitude is no problem. I infuse the energy of the reversed Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique into the Salt Mountain and Salt Crystal Palace held in my hand. Payet. The Salt Mountain vibrates, more intensely than ever before. Hem. As if avoiding the wavelengths of the Salt Mountain, he descends and stands behind me. Is it because I'm thinking it's finally time to return? My shoulders feel as light as if they can fly away. Over the years, I have harmonized the Salt Mountain to my wavelengths. Now, this Salt Mountain is essentially no different from my Dharma treasure. I haven't yet made the Salt Crystal Palace completely mine, but the Salt Mountain alone is mine. Now then, followers of the Twilight Fortress, are you all prepared? I return to my 4-axis main body and ask the entire order. Countless ghostly creatures and demon beast cultivators reply in unison with resounding voices. Yes. I look back at my comrades. Kim Young-hoon, Jian Myung-hoon, Oh Hyun-seok, Kim Yeon, Buk Hyung-hwa, Seo Ran Shiho, the old man carrying a flower basket, Wei Shihan, Eum-hwa, Beek Rin. Everyone, thank you for your hard work thus far. It would be perfect if Yeon Wei is here, but it will be best to contact her after returning to the bright cold realm. I smile as I look around at the 8 comrades who have been with me since the early days. Each and every one of them are reliable individuals. Then now let's go to the bright cold realm. It all started with the intention of saving just 4 disciples of the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder sect. However, before I know it, many connections have followed. Kugagugaguk. Emitting a strong wavelength into the air, I lift the Salt Mountain Dharma treasure. The power of the Salt Mountain Dharma treasure, emitting pure white wavelengths, nullifies the massive attraction force of misfortune surrounding Pinglai Island. We are departing. Kim Yeon and Buk Hyung-hwa activate the Twilight Fortress. Jian Myung-hoon and Oh Hyun-seok tightly bind the Twilight Fortress with attraction force, and Kim Young-hoon stands at the forefront, ready to cut down the vestiges of the interdimensional void or deep-sea monsters that might appear during dimensional travel, just like during ascension. And I, as the cult leader, stand even further ahead of Kim Young-hoon and connect with Jio Yom, Beek Wyack, Nok Ju, and others in lofty Dragon True Person Storage Scroll, pulling together with attraction force. We pull from the bright cold realm and hold in the ancient force realm as we escape. Kugagugagoo. Kim Young-hoon slices through the dimensions of the deep sea and cuts down the deep sea monsters. Through the gap, the Twilight Fortress flies rapidly. At this rate, we will smoothly arrive at lofty Dragon True Person Storage Scroll. I speak with Kim Young-hoon, who is at the forefront. Hyung Nim, about the name-seated detachment standing oblivion. Yes, I have decided on my own name as well. Oh, what is it? I turn around to look back. Hong Fan pushes aside the flower basket-carrying old man and brings tea to Kim Young-hoon and I at the forefront. Please have some tea. Thank you. Hong Fan, along with my comrades, subordinates and followers of the order. There is so much I have gained. Wei Shihan and Eum-hwa are still in their honeymoon phase, and Buk Hyung-hwa and Kim Yeon have become closer, unlike their first meeting. Beek Rin also seems to find peace while conversing with Yuk Yo. Jian Myung-hoon, although he couldn't completely save the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder sect, he has changed significantly from his past self as the Lightning Harbinger. Oh Hyun-seok is also healthy as Azure Tiger Saint is still alive. Yeon Wei, frankly, her problem can't be solved until the root of Hun-won's mental illness is eradicated, but she also cleared her name in her own way and is being treated as an ancestor of the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder sect. Seo Ran, even though he sent off Song Jin, is getting along well with Shiho and recently met with Yeon Jin, inquiring about the Taiji quaking lightning body. It seems he is trying to accept Shiho in some way. He does appear to be a bit greedy for Yuk Yo as well, but with Shiho's personality, it's likely Seo Ran will have to be content with only Shiho. Regardless, Yuk Yo will eventually return to Pinglai Kingdom anyway. And others as well, whether it's their cultivation progress, gaining subordinates, or harboring expectations for the new base in the bright cold realm. Everyone is harboring a small happiness. Wai Yun, Yuk Rin's half-human, half-fish puppet that Beek Rin captured, recently regained her mind and reunited with her parents. Not only her, but the countless followers of Twilight Fortress. The harmonious demon race and ghostly creatures. Those who believe in me. All of them are the ultimate blessing, Chinese letter, bestowed upon me. Yes, they are my hope. I catch Hong Fan, who's about to fall under Twilight Domain after handing over the tea and returning. Ah, thank you, Master. Be careful, you've caught something on your leg. It seems to be an item from the dimensional fragments in the deep sea. It's a bracelet in the shape of a coiled black snake eating its tail. It looks like a Dharma treasure. I'll present it to you, Master. The ancient force realm certainly is a dimension where treasures roll around. Kim Young-hoon laughs heartily. I vowed not to rely on external objects, but honestly, collecting devil swords and demon sabers is so fun that it's become a habit. There's just so much to find in the deep sea dimension of the ancient force realm. I recently picked up a sword. Do you need it? It's a Dharma treasure made of salt crystal. No need, you use it. Taking what you found is a little. I smile and look ahead. Anyway, the name of Hyungnin's realm, seated detachment, standing oblivion Chinese letter Chinese letter Chinese letter Chinese letter, is written as standing oblivion Chinese letter Chinese letter. Right. That's right. I reach out toward the void with a peaceful expression. The name of my realm is this. Payet. I grab the all-heaven sword and swiftly perform a sword dance. The sword moves, inscribing words into the air. Seated detachment, entering hope, Chinese letter Chinese letter Chinese letter Chinese letter. Not standing oblivion Chinese letter, but entering hope, Chinese letter. Not stand in detachment, but a name that reveals my hope, to enter hope. That is seated detachment, entering hope, Chinese letter Chinese letter Chinese letter Chinese letter. It's a name with the same pronunciation as Kim Young-hoon's realm, but with a different meaning. TL/N means wind, but it also means hope, something that gives hope. Seated detachment, standing oblivion, and seated detachment, entering hope are both, which is why Seo Yoon-hyun says the pronunciations are the same. The blessings of countless people rest upon these shoulders. Therefore, I must walk towards hope from now on. To not be ashamed in front of them. This is my hope, and at the same time my aspiration. And it is when I breathe hope into the name seated detachment, entering hope. Tingle, tingle. I feel as if I hear a voice from the salt mountain in my hand. This is. No, the voice isn't coming from the salt mountain. It's a sound coming from within me. The knowledge remaining in a corner of my mind, obtained after becoming a salt pillar in the head realm. That knowledge is dissolving. Slowly, I raise my hand and lift the salt mountain towards the sky. Words unintentionally escape my lips. Immortal cultivation is repentant enlightenment. This is part of the Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique, and the reverse Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique's mantra formula. Like tiny grains of salt gathering to form the sea. Wowung. Each time I recite the mantra aloud, light shines more intensely from the salt mountain. Build mountains through repentant enlightenment. Building a mountain of salt is perhaps the fastest way to reach the heavens. Wowung. Up to this point, it's a mantra I recited regularly. Kagagugu. Yoon-hyun, it seems like the attraction force of misfortune is clinging. I don't know for sure, but... Beside me, Kim Young-hoon speaks with concern. As he said, the attraction force of misfortune is gradually wrapping around us again, surrounding the Twilight Fortress. It seems to get stronger the further we distance ourselves from the ancient force realm. However, I pay no heed and lift Salt Mountain, speaking another mantra that has just dissolved in my mind. Each to one another. This is a mantra, but at the same time it's a song. Holding hands. This song speaks about connection with everyone at the sea. The sea mentioned here is in line with the sea from the first mantra. A sea formed by tiny grains of salt. A world of repentant enlightenment and affliction. Drink salt. Salt is repentant enlightenment. All connections, cultivating immortality together in repentant enlightenment. That is what this song is trying to convey. A world of cultivation, not of plundering from one another, but of looking after one another, is sung. And with the wind, I close my eyes. This song. In other words, it is no coincidence that the second mantra of the reversed Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique suddenly appeared. It must be because I hold my hope in my heart. A person's heart, a person's hope, has power in itself. This mantra proves that by itself. Just by holding hope in my embrace without even drawing spiritual energy, my words become mental speech, resonating and spreading. Soar. I slowly open my eyes, recalling the last 3 verses of the mantra. For that is how one reaches the peak of the mountain. Payet. A brilliant bright light bursts forth from the salt mountain, coloring the whole world. Heaven and earth spiritual energy, like tiny grains, envelop the Twilight Fortress and nullifies the attraction force of misfortune. It seems as if the pure white light above my hand is opening the gate to the heavens. I smile as I open my mouth to recite the remaining 2 verses. I've come this far without abandoning anyone. Together with my people, I will walk towards hope. Yon Wei said that there is only despair in this world, but those words are wrong. If you wish and wish for hope, hope will surely come and find us. Beyond the pure white light, a pitch-black sky appears. A colossal and tyrannical great mountain, Chinese letter, so vast it seems to crush the heavens and earth and the entire universe, enters before my eyes. The great mountain is hardened with the blood of countless people, and innumerable bones and corpses are embedded everywhere. It's a mountain built upon despair and fear, greed and suffering. The peak of that great mountain seems to reach the end of the universe. And then I make eye contact with something at the summit of the great mountain. Snap! A sound is heard. The Wuji religious order behind me has evaporated. Translator notes, the lines of the mantra formula are the chapter names. In the Raws, it's the chapter names in order, but unfortunately, it doesn't translate the same way. Chapter 404, Bow Down in Prostration 1. I don't quite understand something. When I turn around, the entire Twilight Fortress has vanished. To be precise, the entire front part of the Twilight Domain Fortress. Kim Young-hoon, Jian Myo-hoon, Oh Hyan-seok, Kim Yeon, Buk Hyung-hwa, Seo Ran, Hong Fan, Shi-ho, Yeon-jin, and the 13 Guardian Ghost Kings along with Yuk-yo, who has been by Baek Rin's side. Excluding those 23, everything has evaporated. And then, right after, Kagagagugu. Should it be called a cosmic force? A colossal power sweeps between us. It seems to be the aftermath of the Wuji religious order's annihilation just moments ago. Even in the midst of such bewilderment, I somehow managed to pull my comrades in with an attraction force. Everyone grab each other's hands. We all hold hands to avoid being scattered by the massive storm. On my left is Jian Myo-hoon, and on my right is Hong Fan. The next moment, Pugwag, Jian Myo-hoon explodes. I had no time to react. Like a child crushing an insect, Jian Myo-hoon couldn't resist at all, and was crushed to death along with his domain. Kwajik. Next is Yeon-jin. Yeon-jin is turned into minced meat. Kwajuduk. Then it's Yuk-yo and Baek Rin. The two lovers are crushed and mixed together, their remains intertwined. Wada Kwajujuk. Yujuduk. Bajujujuduk. For a while my comrades burst and die like bugs. Shortly after, the ones left are Kim Young-hoon, Oh Hyan-seok, Buk Hyung-hwa, Hong Fan, and Seo Ran. Kim Yeon, only her head remains. This fact, someone, please tell me that this is not reality. The storm subsides. With trembling hands, I reach out to the chunks of flesh before me. I caress Yeon's face. And then, I once again look up at the great mountain that has appeared ahead. What is this? My voice, it doesn't come out properly. It isn't out of fear of an existence beyond comprehension. I'm just so very overwhelmed with emotion that my voice doesn't come out. Right now that, before my eyes, doesn't exude any kind of dignity. I can tell. It's a kind of projection sent by integration, stage grand cultivators. That too, a special kind of projection designed specifically to avoid revealing their rank. It's like a shadow. Hence, it's natural that nothing can be felt. But because it's a shadow, I can gaze at the existence at the peak of the great mountain. They're so distant that I can't see them. But I can definitely tell. That existence is the one that just crushed and killed my comrades. Avant-daire. I can feel it. That existence, it's looking directly down at me. You called for me. Too distant for my consciousness to perceive, too far for my eyes to reach. But I know. Right now that thing is smiling. After taking everything from me. It hurts. It hurts. My chest feels suffocated. I pound my chest and something bursts out. It's a flower. It's a black blood tears flower. Normally, requiring the preparation of materials through the Yin Soul Ghost incantation and needing to be refined through a special spell formula, is the black blood tears flowers. But now, it just pours out as soon as I open my mouth. Flowers of monstrosities pour out of my mouth in torrents. From my eyes, nose, ears. No, it feels like flowers are gushing out from every orifice in my body. Did you use? Okay. I shall teach you properly. My eyes roll back. I savagely tear open a hole in my stomach and pull out the colorless glass sword. The idea of taking it out from my mouth doesn't even occur to me. Completely deranged, I charged towards the black mountain in front of me. Wajajujuduk. My vocal cords shatter, as if silencing me. At the same time, the colorless glass sword I hold shatters into pieces and scatters into the void, as if mocking me. Wu Weng. The barrier of yin-yang and 5 elements rises, trapping me. At the same time, space begins to warp. Aada yi yon yon. Crunch splatter. I see Buck Hyung Hwa, who is still alive, get caught in the spatial storm and have her entire body crushed. Kim Young-hoon tries to resist, but is torn limb from limb and dies as his head is plucked off. This bitch, you dog shit, you dog. Oh Hyun-seok tries to do something, but is compressed into a meatball and dies. Seo Ran, peculiarly, has his nascent soul extracted and absorbed into the Black Great Mountain. And Hong Fan is caught in the spatial tempest and has his entire body torn apart. Even as his body is being ripped to shreds, he speaks with his trembling pupils, as if saying everything is fine. It has been an honor to serve you up close. As long as Master remembers me, I will always be watching over. Kwajik. Those are Hong Fan's last words. He looked like an old man, but in reality, he was even younger than Buck Hyung Hwa, the little centipede that had stuck close to my foot on Ascension Path, who sacrificed himself and died for me when I was modified by the Mad Lord, who, even though I didn't take care of him when we went a COH, showed his talent and grew up to be a splendid genius centipede, who eventually reached the transformation stage and took on human form, becoming Hong Fan, who had always silently served by my side until now, my subordinate. No, my friend has died. I wail with my shattered vocal cords. My voice, resounding across heaven and earth, spreads throughout the world. Phenomena, Chinese letter, extinguishing Chinese letter, mantra, Chinese letter, Chinese letter. I see it. In front of Great Mountain. Something begins to gather. I think of it as just the spiritual energy of yin-yang and 5 elements at first, because it exactly matches the flow of the reversed Great Mountain splitting emperor technique that I have memorized. However, I gradually realize something. Something is gradually gathering more and more. No, beyond that. The attraction force of the world is growing stronger. Jang Ik's words flash through my mind. When the attraction force of the heavenly domain reaches its peak, the end will come. Kagagagugu. The attraction force of the entire world outside the barrier of yin-yang and 5 elements is gradually becoming stronger. Centered around the materialized sphere formed by the energy of yin-yang and 5 elements gathered in front of Great Mountain, the entire attraction force of the heavenly domain begins to converge. The universe starts to contract. Are those stars decaying corpse realms? They are galaxies. Amidst this surreal scene, I watch in a daze, forgetting even to wail, as countless stars, decaying corpse realms and galaxies converge into a single point. The heavenly domain begins to narrow. Gradually the world becomes hotter, filling with light and heat. I gape as I see countless decaying corpse realms being pulled toward Great Mountain. Thighs, Yang Sujin's ring finger, someone's backhand, flesh, bones, livers, eyeballs, other organs, skin, tails, and so on. Countless decaying corpse realms are being sucked in, and galaxies are colliding with galaxies. And then, my eyes widen, wondering if what I am seeing is real. Nether Ghost, Chinese letter, Purple Gold, Chinese letter, Ancient Force, Chinese letter, True Devil, Chinese letter, Bright Cold, Chinese letter. The 5 middle realms are being sucked into that sphere. As someone who has built the symbolic axis of each realm, I can distinguish the middle realms. And something dark red in the distance seems to be trying to escape, but is inevitably pulled in as well. But that isn't all. True persons. The true persons who have suffered fatal wounds from me are, of course, as well as those disguised as planets and quietly sleeping, all awaken and try to flee in the opposite direction of the attraction force. Yet not a single true person succeeds in escaping and are instead all sucked in. The situation is so surreal it feels like a dream. Soon the world itself, now filled with light and heat, compresses in front of Great Mountain. In other words, all the galaxies, middle realms, decaying corpse realms, and true persons have been sucked in and contracted to the same size as the sphere. No, the contraction doesn't end there. The heavenly domain continues to contract even in that state, until it finally becomes a single point of white light. The being atop Great Mountain seems to contemplate something upon seeing this point before tossing it somewhere. I see the point formed by the contraction of the entire heavenly domain being pulled somewhere. As there is no longer light or anything else, I can't verify where it goes. All I can do is despair. This is the true form of the thing you used. The reversed Great Mountain splitting emperor technique. No. The phenomena extinguishing mantra, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter. The true purpose of this mantra is not simply to gather the energies of yin-yang and 5 elements and display an inverted cone. It's an immortal art meant to gather everything, including yin-yang and 5 elements and all of heaven and earth, to bring about the end, Chinese letter, Chinese letter. That is the phenomena extinguishing mantra. Now die. Pugwag. And then, just like my comrades, I instantly explode into a mass of minced meat. Both the nascent soul and the heavenly circle and earthly bearings. Everything is shattered without a chance to resist. As I die, I realize the being atop Great Mountain kept me alive until the very end solely to mock me in the most miserable way possible. Until the very end of all ends, that thing mocked me. Feeling the mockery of the existence atop Great Mountain, I lose consciousness. That is my 20th return. Inside the yin-yang and 5 elements barrier, where Seo Yun Haiyan has been reduced to chunks of meat, lies the miniaturized Salt Mountain and Salt Crystal Palace. As the being atop Great Mountain gestures, they rise toward the towering peak of Great Mountain. At the summit, built on layers of suffering, fear, and oppression, the being seated there extends their hand towards the miniaturized Salt Mountain, and the mountain floats into their grasp. For a while, the being caresses the Salt Mountain with care, as if it's something precious. However, as if recalling something, they gaze at the Salt Mountain with eyes filled with contempt. While doing so, the being looks somewhere else. It's the spot where the point of the contracted heavenly domain was tossed. Flash. From that spot, a burst of light erupts, and 8 colossal shadows begin to walk forth. The being atop Great Mountain watches them with a sneer before dissolving into the void, disappearing. In its place, only the barrier of yin-yang and 5 elements, containing Seo Yun Haiyan's minced meat and the shards of the colorless glass sword, remain. The 8 shadows simultaneously let out a thunderous roar. Ra-chin! In response to their reactions, light explodes fiercely, and the heavenly domain that was contracted into a single point begins to expand once more. The astral realm, Chinese letter, that is, the universe, Chinese letter, begins to unfold once more. After the yin-yang and 5 elements barrier enters the universe. When the universe starts to fully form again, it unravels. Throughout the universe, newly born quasi-immortals at the entering nirvana stage squirm and swim in all directions, instinctively beginning to create stars. The shards of the colorless glass sword scatter throughout the entire universe, and a fragment of Seo Yun Haiyan falls on one of the stars created by the quasi-immortals. Then the old man carrying a flower basket covers Seo Yun Haiyan's fragment with soil and pats it down. Tab tab. It was enjoyable. The flower basket carrying old man, known by some as the owner of Western Heaven Flower Field, or what others refer to as the Eastern Heaven Flower Field, the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable, after completing this task, smiles faintly as if satisfied and turns around to leave. Not long after, he vanishes from that heavenly domain. And shortly after the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable disappears. From the place where Seo Yun Haiyan's fragment is buried, a flower begins to bloom. The flower seems to shine brightly, emitting a pure white light. And within that light, a familiar presence begins to be resurrected. It's Seo Yun Haiyan. Seo Yun Haiyan, revived without a single wound, looks around in a daze for a moment. La. And then, Kagagugu. Around him, a field of cursed flowers blooms. Chapter 405, Bow Down in Prostration 2. The heavenly domain is formed, and naturally born quasi-immortals emerge, creating stars. Not long after, beings below quasi-immortals are born. These are the administrators of the worlds, the sacred masters. The naturally born sacred vessel stage sacred masters manage the laws of the stars created by the quasi-immortals and instinctively begin to birth life into the universe. Under their influence, stars find their orbits, and in an instant, galaxies and star systems are born within the heavenly domain, transforming into environments conducive to the growth of living beings. And then, on a star that has been moved near a fixed star by one of the sacred masters. Editor fixed star refers to one like our sun. There is a presence. Wriggle, wriggle, wriggle. Mumble, mumble, mumble. He is a man dressed in white, with black flowers blooming around him. It's Seo Yunhyan. Seo Yunhyan mutters something continuously with a vacant gaze. His eyes are empty, and the black blood tears flowers around him incessantly wriggle repulsively, emitting ghostly wails. However, Seo Yunhyan, standing at the center of this monstrous flower field, simply mutters incomprehensibly with an indifferent expression. As time passes, the field of cursed flowers expands. The flower field continues to grow. 1 li, 10 li, 100 li, 1,000 li. However, that seems to be the limit. The field of cursed flowers stops expanding after reaching a diameter of 1,000 li, centered around Seo Yunhyan. Instead, at a certain moment, rather than flowers in a flower field, animals begin to appear. Wriggle, wriggle. Things like veins and intestines, having sprouted from Seo Yunhyan's body, struggle to detach from him before eventually dying. This phenomenon continues for decades, eventually evolving. Then at some point, Heo Hyoktek, a dark black blood tears flower seems to bloom from Seo Yunhyan's body, and from within the black blood tears flower, a being with tentacles and a face identical to Seo Yunhyan's emerges. After staring at Seo Yunhyan for a moment, the being attempts to flee as far as possible from him with a face filled with terror. However, the further it gets from Seo Yunhyan, the more it seems to lose strength, eventually shriveling up and dying. Dozens of black blood tears flowers bloom from Seo Yunhyan's body each day, and from within them, monsters identical to Seo Yunhyan appear and attempt to flee from him, only to repeatedly wither and die. The true identity of these monsters are none other than Seo Yunhyan's heart demons. Even though the heart demons wither and die, they all desperately try to escape from Seo Yunhyan's body for a reason. Mumble, 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 mumble. Seo Yunhyan's lips continue to mutter something. But though he is muttering, the exact meaning of those words are impossible to discern. They are merely sounds emitted without any purpose. And the eyes of Seo Yunhyan, who is uttering these meaningless words, are so darkly tainted to a point no one could possibly imagine. Shayla. Though Seo Yunhyan himself seems unaware, as time passes, his hair gradually turns white, just like it would in his old age. Mumble, mumble, mumble. However, whether he knows it or not, Seo Yunhyan continues to mutter repeatedly, constantly vomiting curses from his body. A new heavenly domain was born, and 1,000 years passed. During this 1,000 years, countless life forms began to settle on various stars under the guidance of the sacred masters. Naturally born star-shattering stage beings also began to emerge one by one, breathing new power into the heavenly domain. And during this millennium, there is a planet that has half melted. Near the core of that planet, there, something that has been drooping and muttering with a ruined gaze suddenly clenches its fist. The being that clenched its fist strikes its own head with that fist. Quang! The entire planet trembles. It's a truly terrifying blow, but the being remains unscathed even after taking that blow. However, there appears to be some effect. The being stopped its muttering, splits open its own stomach, and reaches inside to pull something out. It's a scroll. When the scroll is unfurled, certain objects and puppets sealed within are revealed. One of the puppets inside the scroll is crying and wailing. The being that half melted the planet pulls out the puppet with a vacant expression. Congratulations on thy birthday, most revered cult leader. The puppet wears a face full of reverence and bows to him in the shape of a 90-degree angle. And finally, he understands. Roughly 1,000 years after the birth of the new heavenly domain following the end. That day is exactly his 5,000th birthday. Of course, this is his 5,000th birthday not in terms of physical age, but in terms of the age of his soul. the being celebrating his 5,000th birthday. Seo Yun-hyan, upon hearing the puppet's congratulatory words, finally regains his sanity. However, just regaining his sanity didn't bring about any drastic changes. He simply continues staring into the void. What good will it do if something changes? In any case, there is nothing left in this world. All those he loved are dead. There is no place to return to. In that case, just what is a person supposed to do? For roughly 1,000 years, he has raged, suffered, and cursed. But after half-melting the planet, rather than pain, a sense of emptiness engulfs him. In the past, when he lost his beloved to Yuan Li and swore revenge, it was because Yuan Li was still at a level within his reach to some extent. But this time, what can he possibly do about the being that annihilated his comrades, the ones he loved? Seo Yun-hyan knows. Even if hundreds of millions of years pass, he can never defeat that devil god, Chinese letter. That being is so distant and unfathomable that he can't even fathom how to reach it. But how is he possibly supposed to suppress his desire for revenge? He spends another 23 years sitting in stupid with a hollow laugh. And then, in the 24th year, suddenly, his eyes shrivel up as he touches his abdomen. Ay ay ay. It has been so long since he has spoken that it's as if he has forgotten how. However, he soon recalls the words. It's gone. Panic spreads across his face. Colorless glass sword. The colorless glass sword is gone. And he remembers. The moment he tried to swing the sword toward the being atop Great Mountain, the sword shattered. And only then does he finally cry out again. While his whole body trembles, he still manages to find a very faintly embedded shard of the colorless glass sword inside his golden core. Finding the shard of the colorless glass sword, he clenches his teeth as his hands shake uncontrollably. Find I must find. Finally, after spending what amounts to nearly 1,000 years, a sense of purpose begins to take root, and with it, rationality begins to return to him. Without a word, he extends his consciousness, scouring the planet he is on. However, he fails to find any more shards of the colorless glass sword. After scouring the planet for a while, Seo Yun-hyan moves to a neighboring planet to search for the shards of the colorless glass sword. There are none on the neighboring planet either. However, he acts somewhat differently on the neighboring planet. Kugug. He uses earth attribute spells to reshape the ground, attempting to recreate the faces of his comrades from memory. Whether it's a sculpture or a mural, it doesn't matter. But after a while, Seo Yun-hyan's hands stop. His eyes waver precariously. The fact that the colorless glass sword is gone means that the canvas of myriad forms and connections, which relies on it, is also gone. And the absence of the canvas of myriad forms and connections means that there is a leak in his small pool of memories. His hands tremble as he struggles to remember the faces of his comrades accurately. And after roughly 36 years of agonizing effort, Seo Yun-hyan manages to recall the distinct features of his comrades and sketches their faces. But he is far from satisfied. Their faces are not clear. He sighs gloomily. In any case, if he wants to recover his proper memories, he needs the canvas of myriad forms and connections. And for that, he needs the colorless glass sword. Using the planet where he has drawn his comrades' faces as a coordinate, he continues his search for the shards of the colorless glass sword. Although the colorless glass sword was shattered into tiny pieces and scattered throughout the astral realm, Seo Yun-hyan is undeterred. This is because even though it's called a glass sword, after being tempered by Seo Yun-hyan's Dan fire for over 4,000 years, it has transformed into a mineral that is questionable to call glass. What that means is that the shards of Seo Yun-hyan's colorless glass sword are older than this newly born heavenly domain itself. The method he uses to track the shards of the colorless glass sword is simple. He would find a planet and activate the formula of the canvas of myriad forms and connections throughout the entire planet through the dragon veins. If there is a place where the power of the dragon veins gathers, that would be where the shard is located. A planet where the canvas of myriad forms and connections is activated will be one where the canvas of myriad forms and connections has never been used before. And if the dragon veins activated through the aura of the canvas of myriad forms and connections are further concentrated on a specific location, then it is likely the shard of the colorless glass sword, which is more familiar with the canvas of myriad forms and connection compared to the planet itself, would be there. Using this method, Seo Yunhyan is able to recover a shard of the colorless glass sword about the size of a thumb over the course of 4,000 years. And there is one very first thing Seo Yunhyan does after finding that much of the colorless glass sword. Well, he returns to the planet where he has first drawn the faces of his comrades and activates the canvas of myriad forms and connection using the thumb-sized restored piece of the colorless glass sword. Although the range that can be restored isn't a lot, it still contains the faces Seo Yunhyan desires. Seo Yunhyan restores those faces and sculpts them into statues. This time they are very small statues, small enough to fit in his hand. After burying those statues on the planet, he creates tombstones on the ground. He has only made the graves for those within the restored canvas of myriad forms and connections. That is all Seo Yunhyan can do for now. However, he has already found a new purpose. To fully restore the canvas of myriad forms and connections, remember all their faces, and create tombstones for everyone he remembers from the previous heavenly domain. That is his new goal in this new heavenly domain, where no one remains. He bows deeply towards the graves he has already made and lights incense. In his own way, he is giving them a funeral. Thus from that day, Seo Yunhyan's journey began. A further 6,000 years pass. Seo Yunhyan has now reached exactly 15,000 years of age. Clink. Seo Yunhyan finally restored a handle of the colorless glass sword. The progress is painfully slow. However, he smiles. The number of tombstones he has created on planets has increased. He places the colorless glass sword into his storage scroll. He still doesn't fully understand how he was resurrected, but one thing is clear. The entity that revived him also restored his storage scroll and his other belongings. Thanks to that, he is able to use the conveniences of a cultivation civilization, such as the storage scroll. Looking at the handle of the colorless glass sword inside the storage scroll, he thinks to himself, refining them in his Dan fire can only be done after all the shards of the colorless glass sword are restored, tempered together. If not, the shards that are in contact with the Dan fire for longer will become stronger, while others will be weaker, resulting in an unevenly restored colorless glass sword. Wung. As he grasps the handle of the colorless glass sword and operates the canvas of myriad forms and connections, he feels a slight pull. It's a very faint pull and the duration is short, but Seo Yunhyan doesn't mind. It's a good sign. The more the colorless glass sword is restored, the greater of an attraction force it emits through the canvas of myriad forms and connections towards the other shards of the colorless glass sword. In other words, the more he restores the colorless glass sword, the faster the restoration process will become. And so, another 15,000 years pass. Seo Yunhyan finally restored one of the 3,000 colorless glass swords. A single sword. However, Seo Yunhyan is not disappointed. Although it's just a single sword, the fact that it has taken shape is what matters. A faint mist begins to rise over the colorless glass sword. Seo Yunhyan restores the canvas of myriad forms and connections related to his overall memories. The canvas of myriad forms and connections that forms the main thread of Seo Yunhyan's life. Wuang. He feels the attraction force that the humming canvas of myriad forms and connection points towards. The attraction force has become much clearer than before. Now, it will be much easier to find more shards of the colorless glass sword. After sensing the attraction force for a moment, Seo Yunhyan descends onto a planet where he was making a tombstone. He inhales the spiritual energy and half closes his eyes. Behind his head, the heavenly circle rises and the four axes emerge in his four directions. Kurururung. As if realizing what he is about to do, dark clouds begin gathering in the sky. Indeed, 30,000 years. Now even Seo Yunhyan's lifespan is nearing its end. He gained 10,000 years each from the axis of wealth and the axis of love of virtue, and another 10,000 when he reached the four-axis stage. The longevity axis and the health axis had both been sacrificed when he reached the four-axis stage, so they are as good as non-existent. Therefore, if he wants to continue living and keep searching for the colorless glass sword, he now has to rise to the integration stage. He soars into the sky, ensuring the tombstone he created remains intact. Unlike the typical heavenly tribulation that could be faced comfortably while sitting, the breakthrough tribulation for the integration stage has to be faced while floating in the sky. In the case of Jian Myeonhoon, the power of his heavenly golden thunder body allowed him to transform and withstand the tribulation. But Seo Yoon-hyun, possessing more ordinary talent, has no such ability. First, let's gather all the necessary materials. Seo Yoon-hyun directs his will towards the dragon vein below. Traction force emanates from his hand. Kagagugu. The dragon vein, which had been boiling within the star, is pulled out by Seo Yoon-hyun's will and begins to be refined within his grasp. Seo Yoon-hyun uses the internal energy method known as Dragon Vein Chi method, which he mastered during his time in the martial world. In an instant, Seo Yoon-hyun's body transforms, becoming indistinguishable from a dragon blood pool where dragon veins converge, and the powerful energy of the dragon vein surges like a torrent following the circulation of the Dragon Vein Chi method. Connected to the dragon vein through the Dragon Vein Chi method, Seo Yoon-hyun refines yet another nascent soul through the Earth Tribe method. The energy of the Dragon Vein Chi method is of the Earth attribute, and the newly refined nascent soul glows with a golden hue, imbued with Earth energy. Wulang, a nascent soul of the Earth attribute, appears before Seo Yoon-hyun's eyes. Using the power drawn from the dragon vein, he begins to erase the personality of the nascent soul, leaving only its attribute. And then, Wuduk Wujujuduk, he starts compressing the nascent soul. After a while, the nascent soul completely transforms into an axis of 5 elements representing the earth element. Seo Yoon-hyun places the axis of 5 elements refined through the Dragon Vein Chi method onto his palm, and then alters its attributes in correspondence with the 8 trigrams. The fire of the 5 elements corresponds to the fire/Chinese letter of the 8 trigrams. The water of the 5 elements corresponds to the water/Chinese letter/Chinese letter of the 8 trigrams. The wood of the 5 elements corresponds to the wind/Chinese letter and thunder/Chinese letter of the 8 trigrams. The metal of the 5 elements corresponds to the sky/Chinese letter and lake/Chinese letter of the 8 trigrams. The earth of the 5 elements corresponds to the ground/Chinese letter and mountain/Chinese letter of the 8 trigrams. Gradually, the nature of the axis of 5 elements changes, transforming the earth Chinese letter attribute axis into Gen Chinese letter, that is, the axis of mountain Chinese letter. Considering that my heart essence and most of my main methods are related to mountain Chinese letter, it's better to prepare a mountain axis. Of course, in that case, it would have been better to build the mountain axis directly using the Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique, rather than the Dragon Vein Chi method. However, Seo Yoon-hyun painfully understands more than anyone else that the Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique is connected to true immortals, so he created the axis using the Dragon Vein Chi method derived from Kim Young-hoon instead of a method originating from a true immortal. And so, Seo Yoon-hyun's breakthrough to the integration stage begins. Yutting. Seo Yoon-hyun's nascent soul exits through his Beihui point and sits cross-legged in the air. At the same time, the halo of the vast cold heavenly circle forms behind the nascent soul's head. The 5 blessings axes of longevity, wealth, health, and love of virtue form the earthly bearings around the nascent soul's dantian. Typically, the process of rising to the integration stage would involve first shortening the distance between the heavenly circle and the earthly bearings through the process of heaven and earth unity, then merging them entirely, and finally evolving them into a small world. But Seo Yoon-hyun half closes his eyes. 6 shadows emerge from beneath him. After infusing the love of virtue axis, his 6 extremes yin thunder body completely vanished. No, to be exact, Seo Yoon-hyun's 6 extremes yin thunder body became the 6 extremes Chinese letter itself. 6 additional axes emerge around him. From his vantage point above the planet in the astral realm, Seo Yoon-hyun is able to resolve one of the doubts that has previously arisen in his mind. It's about the 5 elements heterodox axes foundation, the 5 elements orthodox axes foundation, the regular 5 blessings axes foundation, and the 5 axes 6 extremes axes foundation, formed by receiving the 5 blessings and returning lifespan to sense the 6 extremes. The 4-axis stage, or rather the earth axis stage, has a lot of methods. Then among all these methods, which one is the correct approach? He has pondered about this. The five elements axis places the attribute learned by one's nascent soul as the center and strengthens the central axis with the remaining four axes of five elements. The five blessings axes do not strengthen attributes, but instead strengthens the four-axis canopy itself. Which one is truly the proper Earth-axis stage method? Only now, on the day he performs the breakthrough ritual to the integration stage, does he finally find the answer. They were all one from the beginning. The originally united method of axis foundation practice. It has been split by someone. Originally, the five blessings axis is composed of health, wealth, longevity, love of virtue, and the individual's heavenly circle-turned axis corresponding to acceptance at fate's end that forms the four-axis canopy and evolves it to reach the integration stage. With the five blessings axis method, it becomes significantly easier to unite the heavenly circle of acceptance at fate's end with the earthly bearings of health, wealth, longevity, and love of virtue, significantly reducing the difficulty of rising to the integration stage. But what will happen if the six extremes axes are added? Heavenly circle of acceptance at fate's end, along with longevity, wealth, health, love of virtue. And the six extremes. First of all, the numbers don't add up. Though the heavenly circle is perfect on its own and doesn't require a numerical counterpart, where do the six extremes fit within the earthly bearings? Of course, one can still attach them appropriately and skillfully, and as long as one has the sufficient senses to maintain a balance, there won't be any issues with rising to the integration stage. In fact, upon reaching the integration stage, the five blessings and six extremes become more perfectly integrated, providing advantages in terms of attraction force and other aspects. However, the five blessings six extremes axes are inherently rather ambiguous axes. I was mistaken from the beginning. He finally realizes how to unify the previously fragmented four-axis method. The mistake was in thinking the five elements axes and the five blessings axes are separate. Welwung, Seo Yunhyan's vast cold heavenly circle, located in the upper dantian of his nascent soul, separates from it. The four-five blessings axes in the lower dantian of the nascent soul also detach. Combining the vast cold heavenly circle with the remaining four blessings creates five axes. Adding the six extremes axes results in six axes. A total of 11, a rather ambiguous number. However, Seo Yunhyan lifts the mountain axis that he prepared beforehand. The mountain axis slips in among the 11 axes. 12 axes are now formed. At last, the earth axis stage is completed. Requiring the five elements axis, the five blessings axes, and the six extremes axes, that is the proper earth axis stage. From the beginning, the crucial point in forming the heavenly circle and earthly bearings is the sky and ground. The four directions aren't necessarily required. Seo Yunhyan completes the earthly bearings with the earthly branches, Chinese letter. Welwung. Centered around Seo Yunhyan's nascent soul, the 12 axes connect through attraction force and each take their respective positions. Then, the yin-yang dual energies within Seo Yunhyan's nascent soul begin to rotate, turning the wheel of day and night. With each cycle of day and night, the nascent soul's shadow and light sweeps across the 12 axes in sequence. Gradually, the rotation of day and night accelerates, and the speed at which light and shadow passes over the 12 axes also increases. And at a certain moment, the 12 axes shine brightly, drawing a circle. Seo Yunhyan converges his attraction force towards the center of the circle, preparing to break through. Inside the circle created by the 12 axes, the scenery of Seo Yunhyan's four-axis canopy begins to be reflected. And according to the landscape within the four-axis canopy, the circle gradually begins to take on a three-dimensional form. It's a method of advancement quite different from that of ordinary cultivators at the four-axis stage, but he proceeds without hesitation. Welwung. The four-axis canopy that had been becoming three-dimensional suddenly forms a complete sphere, and Seo Yunhyan's nascent soul expands to match the size of the sphere, placing it within his dantian. The shape is strikingly similar to the planet beneath Seo Yunhyan. These are the earthly bearings, Chinese letter. However, Seo Yunhyan integrated his heavenly circle axis with the earthly bearings. So how is he supposed to achieve heavenly circle? The answer is simple. Welwung. Centered around the earthly bearings within his nascent soul, Seo Yunhyan's nascent soul gradually begins to melt. His nascent soul becomes the atmosphere surrounding the earthly bearings world, simultaneously becoming the cycle of yin and yang of day and night, the star constellations, and even the cycle of the four seasons. Seo Yunhyan gradually makes his nascent soul resemble the planet beneath his feet. His attraction force forms the earthly bearings attraction force, giving rise to the concepts of north and south. With the workings of day and night, east and west are born, finally manifesting the concept of the four directions within the sphere. The heavenly circle of the sky and the earthly bearings of the ground interact, forming a small world of heaven and earth unity. Simultaneously, Kagagugu, dark clouds begin to gather in the sky. Seo Yunhyan starts his rise to the integration stage. Quarvirarung. From the sky, three types of heavenly lightning descend upon him at once. The ordinary, blue-colored heavenly lightning that falls from the sky. The golden heavenly lightning that typically strikes during breakthrough. And the mysterious black-colored Chinese letter, heavenly lightning, symbolizing the heavens. TL/N, mysterious black as in the same black and black ancient. Each of these three types of heavenly lightning strikes Seo Yunhyan with exactly 200 bolts each. Kwajujujudu. At the same time, the dragon vein of the earth beneath Seo Yunhyan's feet begins to writhe violently. Simultaneously, with a thick mist seemingly gathering near the ground, lightning surges from the ground to the sky. Again, the blue lightning that has been striking Seo Yunhyan and the enders. The golden lightning, typical of a standard breakthrough heavenly tribulation. And the yellow-colored Chinese letter, lightning, symbolizing the earth, shoots up from the ground to the sky with 200 bolts each, striking down on Seo Yunhyan. But that is not the end. Dark clouds begin to form from the east of the planet, and in addition to the blue and golden heavenly tribulation, the azure-colored Chinese letter, heavenly tribulation, symbolizing the east, sends 200 bolts each towards Seo Yunhyan. From the west of the planet, dark clouds gather again and sends 200 bolts each of blue, golden, and white-colored Chinese letter, heavenly tribulation, symbolizing the west, towards Seo Yunhyan. From the south, 200 bolts each of red-colored Chinese letter, heavenly tribulation, symbolizing the south, along with the golden and blue heavenly tribulation, are sent. From the north, 200 bolts each of black-colored Chinese letter, heavenly tribulation, symbolizing the north, along with the golden and blue heavenly tribulation, are sent. A total of 3,600 bolts of heavenly lightning. The breakthrough heavenly lightning of the integration stage is also known as six lightnings, Chinese letter, a powerful heavenly tribulation that fills the positions of the heavens, earth, and four directions. Seo Yunhyan can no longer simply crush the clouds with a single blow as he had done before. QA. But that is still not the end. The advancement to the integration stage only truly begins now. He must draw upon the energy of heavens from the six lightnings, and the energy of earth from the nearby dragon vein, to carve a dragon vein into the interior of the small world he has created. All while being struck by the six lightnings. This dragon vein will create the life force within the small world, functioning as the 8 extraordinary meridians of the world itself, making it an extremely crucial task. Kagagagaguk. Seo Yunhyan brings the dragon vein into his small world, into the middle area of the ground domain. In other words, if compared to Earth, he is laying the path of the dragon vein along the equator. Then, he establishes the Earth axis that connects the south and north poles. After laying the dragon vein at the equator and the path connecting the north and south poles, the next step is to carve a path through the sky using the six lightnings. What is engraved into the sky are the constellations and star movements of the 3 enclosures and 28 stars that he has already inscribed on his golden core, and the paths of the sun and moon for day and night. And after having completed all of this, and enduring the 6 lightings for an indefinite amount of time, Quarirarung. At last, the torrential rain of heavenly tribulation ceases, and what remains is Seo Yunhyan's body, slowly emitting smoke as it floats above the planet. He slowly half opens his eyes. Seo Yunhyan can sense the world Chinese letter that has taken root within his body. This world gifts Seo Yunhyan with a level of attraction force far beyond that of his previous 4-axis stage, and it bestows upon him a newfound sense of omnipotence, different from before. Although it's a small world within it, he is akin to nature Chinese letter itself. a domain obtained through the Tao Chinese letter of heaven and earth unity. Focusing his mind, Xiao Yunhaiyan clasps his hands together and stimulates his small world, causing it to expand outside his physical body. Integrated Tao domain. Payet. In an instant, a dimensional veil bursts forth from Xiao Yunhaiyan's body, continuously expanding his body. Standing at the north pole of this barren, ashen-gray desert that is his domain, Xiao Yunhaiyan clasps his hands together and closes his eyes. This place is solely my domain. That means no one can intrude without my permission. I wield my authority within the domain and, just in case, block out all the light within it. In an instant, the domain is shrouded in darkness. Thud. I sit down alone in the desert, and within the darkened world I speak. Everyone, I have reached the integration stage. As I stare into the darkness, I fantasize about the others. Yohun Hyungnim Jia Myohun Kang Minhi Hyansiak Hyungnim Yona Buk Hyang HWA Sio Ran Chi Ho Hong Fan Yonwei. I call out each name that comes to mind, one by one. My voice echoes in the darkness. Will you congratulate me? No answer comes. In this darkness that no one can peer into, I bring my hand to my face. Something falls onto the rough sand. Yonwei was right. I was wrong. This world is nothing but despair.